Hello, good evening, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another entertaining, fast, and frantic round of racing action in the much loved and never forgotten about J2ICS Championship Series Season 12, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, we're back for another round of racing action, and here today we conclude the first half of the Championship season, round number 5 of 10, and where exactly have we made our way to? Well, we've arrived at none other than the Mexico City Grand Prix circuit, more formally known as the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez, in reference to the two Rodriguez brothers who sadly both lost their lives in Formula 1 10 years apart in the 60s and the 70s. But whilst the circuit may have dark undertones with regards to its name, it is a circuit that is not dark when it comes to the premise it offers. Many liken it to being a Central American Monza, and it's understandable why when you look at the circuit diagram. Long straights, condensed corner sequences, chicanes thrown into the mix, and also a hairpin and a sweep or two. However, lying beneath the surface actually is a much more technical circuit, and that's why you consider its location in the world. While the highest situated circuits in the globe are while the higher altitudes compared to most, it means around here the air is thinner, and with lower air density it does mean that you can exploit downforce even more, especially on those long straights. But where exactly are my manners as we welcome you all to this post-round broadcast from circuit side, as you tune in tonight, catching up with all the racing action as if it were live. Indeed, the racing action you are going to see occurred actually on Wednesday the 18th of March 2026. We're bringing it to you as if it were live this Thursday the 19th of March, and we invite you to join us on the journey as we see how the season plays out. Of course, you'll be catching all this racing action for the whole season on the one only place on YouTube, as at youtube.com, and search for Porsche Productions or PWP, and you can be tuning in there. And why not subscribe today if you want to stay up to date with the weekly racing action from the J2ICS Championship Series. Of course, this being our season dedicated to the Dallara P217 LMP2 machine, and in the content review you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, and I'll bring you all your race action as it unfolds. In terms of our schedule for tonight, times in Eastern Daylight Time, that's EDT, or Universal Coordinate Time -4, UTC -4, as we can see in approximately 8 minutes time, we make our way into our 20-minute qualifying session, after which we'll be heading to the grid, albeit with a 5-minute warm-up beforehand, and it will be at 25 to 11 tonight that we'll be getting underway with our crown jewel race. Indeed, the first of our two 90-minute endurance races, and we look forward to seeing how our drivers are going to find it when they have to go an extra 30 minutes in a car that definitely is proven to be the ultimate machine for endurance racing. But as we make our way into this round, of course, let's bring you up to speed with what happened last time out in round number 4, and exactly with a standing stand after 4 rounds of racing. And as we can see, we have continued our journey around the globe. Last time out, we were in Canada at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. That was all the way back on the 4th of March. But what exactly happened before we went into our mid-season break for the 2026 Season 2 iRacing update exactly? Well, in terms of your winners, it was not a conventional day in Canada, because whilst we have had one driver who has led the way so far and won every race, including last time out, that being none other than Knotavin, it was his teammate from the Night Racing team of Jen who was able to take pole position. It was a completely unexpected front row, with Jen on pole position and alongside Cat Daddy, and the two separated in the end by the best part of none other than a 10th. However, it was Knotavin who started in third, only 400ths behind Cat Daddy. When the racing got underway, we saw Jen make a mistake into turn number 3. Indeed, Night Racing had a bittersweet moment where their first time pole sitter, looking to go on course for their first podium of the season, saw it all fall to dust, and meanwhile their regular and their number 1 driver was able to take second place. And only 2 laps later, coming into the Moss hairpin, we saw a mistake for Cat Daddy. He was pressured into an error at the hairpin, and so Knotavin was back into the lead and led every lap from that point onwards to see the checker flag and take his 4th win in a row. But on the rest of the podium, it was Tonlo and Beaver, and Tonlo in the end found that the pace of the top 3 was too far away in qualifying, and indeed trying to chase down Knotavin was impossible over the race distance, but he was able to make sure he kept the distance to Beaver, who conversely, after the difficulties of the Hockenheim ring, was able to return to the podium and indeed enjoyed a much stronger day, which is what he needed. But here we are today then for the Mexico City Grand Prix circuit, and as you can see on our calendar, it is one of our crown jewel rounds, the other one being at the back end of the season in round 10 of 10, and that will be on the 22nd of April, and that will be none other than what will be at Road America. So we've got time to go yet before we do get to our season finale, but next time, of course, we'll be making our way to the US of A, and indeed we'll have 4 out of 5 rounds in the United States, because next up will be the circuit of the America's Grand Prix circuit, but that's on the 25th of March. We're not getting there yet, we're here on the 18th of March, so therefore let's stay in the present right now and talk a little bit more about our host circuit for today. Because as we can see, it is the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez Grand Prix layout. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps that come with it. Now, this circuit located in Mexico City of Mexico. There is no state. If you're a little bit of an individual who enjoys geography, you'll find the Mexico City, the capital city of the country, is not affiliated with any state compared to the rest of the country and all the cities and towns within it. And that is because the capital of Mexico is not allowed to be part of a state due to the government ruling. However, that aside, what you're all interested in is the racing. And as you can see from the circuit diagram here, this is one of those circuits that indeed, if you were looking at it with beer goggles on, you may find yourself thinking, wait a minute, that's just Monza with a couple more quarters thrown into it. However, as we said earlier, you need to look beneath the surface and you'll definitely notice that it's a very different circuit because our drivers were all the way down the start for this straight, though we maxed out their top speeds before they make the way into the right, left, right combination of turns 1, 2 and 3. Then it's another sprint all the way down towards turns 4, 5 and 6. With the left into right there, 2 90-degree angle corners, then giving way to an extended hairpin at turn number 6 for our drivers make the way back on themselves and go into the middle sector. This middle sector absolutely be dominated by sweeping bends, but they're all quick fire direction changes, and we'll see the average apex speed gradually build up as they go through turns 7, 8 and 9, for it then to suddenly plummet down through turns 10 and 11, and track limits are definitely going to be a big question through there, before then our drivers make the way into the baseball stadium sequence of turns 12 through to 16. Quite literally, our drivers will be driving into a baseball stadium and out the other side of it, rather than going on the oval loop, which they could if they carried on straight at turn number 12. And indeed, it'll be a sharp 90-degree right-hander at 12. Well, they make the way into the hairpin at turn number 13. We expect plenty of battling. And then they'll exit through turns 14, 15 and 16 before going flat out through turn number 17 to complete the lap and do it all over again. Now, as this is a crown jewel round, let's give you a quick reminder of the rules. None of the rules have changed with regards to car setup. This is an open setup championship where drivers bring a setup of their choosing to each and every race round, and they are required to drive the P217 LMP2 machine from 2017. Qualifying wise, an open qualifying format shall be used, which means all drivers can go out onto the circuit and they are permitted to do as many laps as 6 in total, whereby they do have, of course, where's the out lap plus 6 laps beyond that point to set their qualifying time. Then we make it away to the grid, and when we do go to the grid, we'll line up based on their qualifying times, and we shall see the race commence via a double fold rolling start, as a tradition of any racing in the LMP2 machine. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements. This is definitely going to be a test of strategy for our drivers, and each driver has 2 fast pairs available should they need to use them for damage. A driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 20 or more instant points. We do see these instant point limits slightly raised due to the extra 30 minutes of racing, and they shall be disqualified if they get to 36, but hopefully we don't see that. I mean, all race journeys shall be conducted post-race. But with haste, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to circuit side then, because we brought you up to speed with the rules and regulations and the winners last time out, but the one thing we haven't done is brought you up to speed with the championship standings after 4 rounds of racing. So let's begin by taking a look at the Drivers' Championship, and what we can see is that after 4 rounds, there's one name that hasn't quite had the perfect grade card in terms of points earned, but has definitely had perfection with regards to 4 wins out of 4, and that is Knotavin for Night Racing. The Canadian driver right now looking untouchable up front. However, we did see, of course, the blunting of his indomitability with the fact he was dethroned from pole position in qualifying last time out. Beaver, meanwhile, for Nick Squared, leads the charge for the Nick Squared team ahead of niCKaLaToR, and both drivers there enjoying a very good day at Mosport. And whilst we did talk a little bit about the fact that Beaver made his way back onto the podium after the disappointing in Germany, well, we really need to talk the story of niCKaLaToR, which was a really impressive one. And the fact we had an incredible battle for 5th place that eventually became the battle for 4th after Epi Dust had a late demise at turn 2 in the race at Mosport, but we got to see a 3-way fight on strategy and pace and setup between niCKaLaToR, DC and Biker Pilot, which lasted for approximately 5 minutes into the race through to 15 minutes remaining. It went practically the whole distance, and in the end, what was very intriguing was the fact that niCKaLaToR was not the quickest driver. However, he had track position and he had a car that was set up to outpower its rivals on the straight. So therefore, every time DC alternatively Biker Pilot got close through the corners, they were great there, but as soon as they got into the straight, niCKaLaToR was able to open up the gap just about and get good corner exits, and that was the difference between them. And even with the undercut strategy that was deployed by his rivals, it didn't work out, and niCKaLaToR put his strategy right between the 2 of them. It really was a thriller. So with that, he's holding on to 3rd place. Meanwhile, Cat Daddy in 4th there for playing racing cars, and indeed will be ruining what could have been if he had not made that mistake on lap number 3 last time out, and we look forward to seeing whether he can make redemption for today, as DC for Bold Life Motorsport meanwhile, holds on to 5th by only a single point over both Simply Steve and Tonlo. Garlic Dog sits in 8th place there for playing racing cars, 3 ahead of Jen. For iRacing, he'll be hoping for a much better day today if she does make it onto the grid. And then we do have Empty Dust in 10th place there for Speed Squad. Coast sits 11th ahead of Biker Pilot, and Biker Pilot for 3.8 Racing, missing the opportunity to score some big points to move into the top 10 for the first time this season in a while, but still, hopefully today we might see that come forth. And then we do have none other than Yomega ahead of AJ, with Pancakes completing the top 15. Minus SimCity Racing Drive, it's then Vision Motorsports' Squilliam ahead of Corn Dog, and unfortunately the Corn Hub Motorsports team not having a happy day in the office at all last time at Candle, with both of their cars making the journey to Mosport, but sadly neither of them being seen in qualifying, let alone in the race, due to technical issues with the cars. Spooked Up sits in 18th ahead of Black Bob, and then we do have Paper Bag completing that top 20. But let's not forget, outside of the top 20, we also do have some drivers, ladies and gentlemen, and we do see there Sector, Sassy, and Dickinson rounded off your drivers' championship standings. But meanwhile, as for the team's championship standings, here we can see, when we do update our screen, it is Night Racing who lead by only 16 points over Nick Squared, and we're a very intriguing day, of course, for Night Racing in the fact that it could have been the perfect opportunity for a 1-2. It wasn't to be realised. However, they did achieve a slightly better score compared to some previous rounds, perhaps. But the problem is, right now, Nick Squared have definitely rebuilt their momentum, so they will not be feeling safe at the very top. But we are seeing the top 2 teams starting to pull away a little bit. As meanwhile, playing racing cars, well, they're definitely not playing around at the moment. They try to chase down the top 2 on 181 points, and they have moved ahead of Speed Squad and Bong Life Motorsport, who dropped to 4th and 5th, respectively. 3.8 Racing, they're trying to chase after the top 5 and break away from BDS Racing. Then we do have Vision Motorsports ahead of SimCity Racing and Corn Hub Motorsports completing that top 10. And unfortunately, Scuderia DNF, meanwhile, sitting all the way down 11th place and hoping to pick up some more points in the near future. But that is how the standings stand then after what is 4 rounds of racing. And as we make our way into this round, well, the good news is, of course, ladies and gentlemen, they've just finished their final practice session. It is time for us to make our way into qualifying and see who exactly is going to put it on pole here in preparation for our first crown jewel. So without further ado, let's get into qualifying then and see how exactly they are going to get on. And as the first drivers start to make that out the pit lane, of course, a 20-minute qualifying session. This is definitely going to feel as though this is one of those sessions you can take your time with, in the fact that this is a relatively short lap. Now, when you think about the mileage of this circuit, it's not that short in reality, albeit as the lap times are so quick around here, with the fact they will be charging down those straights for their V8 machines, they're going to be looking at a lap time around about 1.5 minutes, or within a 20-minute window, you've definitely got plenty of time to put a lap together. But as Pancakes weaves his way through turns 1, 2, and 3, very lovely livery on that car, it must be said. Well, a lot of drivers are trying to go out there nice and early in this session, although some are staying in by looks of things. Only 10 drivers have made the journey to Mexico today, and well, whilst we may only have a limited number of drivers, the saying always goes, it's about the quality of the racing, not the quantity of the drivers. And we can especially expect what is some brilliant quality racing. If Mosport was any gauge to go with 12 drivers there, I suspect we're going to see even more of that today. But looking back to Biker Pilot as well, and a lot of drivers in the build-up to this round, given the fact they did have a 2-week break compared to the previous 1-week overlap between each and every round, they were talking about how do you exactly set up a car for Mexico City's Grand Prix circuit. And by the way, we have no sponsored name for this Grand Prix, so it is the Mexico City Grand Prix. We default to that. Indeed, after the absolutely brilliant sponsorship name we did have at Mosport from Biker Pilot, a huge thank you to him, and I'm not going to try and repeat that name through fear of completely dumbfounding myself with alliteration on this broadcast like I did last time out. But either way, from the past to the present, as I try to head on through, why is this such a difficult circuit to get right? Well, the problem is when you do have a high altitude circuit, you have lower air density, and therefore what that means is, because there's less air pushing the cars down to the ground, you can therefore increase the amount of downforce you have. You naturally want to, because you want these cars to be as planted as humanly possible. But in turn, what it means is there's less air resistance on the straights, and therefore you can get away with having more rear wing on the car and more downforce on a straight section. Indeed, if we were to go to Monza in Italy, because of the fact it's a lower altitude circuit, you will want to take all the wing you can off the car. You want to take all the downforce off. You want it to be as streamlined as possible and as straight as possible in order to maximise your top speed on the straights. But coming here, where you've got very similar length straights, it's not a slightly longer start for this straight, but because you've got less air, it means that you can actually run medium to high downforce around here and actually get more out of the car, because you'll be quicker through the corners, but that middle sector, that's the hardest part. You need to set up the car to maximise your corner speed through there, but you've also got to make sure you're maximising your top end speed, and that's the challenge that drivers find themselves with, in the fact that on paper this looks like a low downforce circuit, but the reality is it's actually more medium to high. But you can set up a car many different ways for the Mexico City Grand Prix circuit, but it comes down to the driver and what they think they can do to get the most out of the car. And, well, it's definitely going to be a study in setup. And funny enough, that is actually quite poetically coincidental. The fact that this circuit arrived in the world on the basis of a thesis all the way back in 1953. The gentleman Óscar Fernández. It was an academic thesis, his design. And when that design then became a reality, it's crazy to think that it was a student who was doing studies who, in the end, designed this circuit. A very different origin story compared to most circuits of the globe, where it normally is because a circuit wants to bring motorsport to its adventures and shores. Or it was simply a design thesis that one day got made into reality, and, well, all the way over the course of the best part now of what has been, if my mental maths is correct, 73 years, this circuit has played host to most, if not all, major international road racing series, from Formula 1 to World Endurance Championship to even NASCAR. Indeed, it has multiple different layouts, this circuit. NASCAR racing on the more oval focus layout towards the start-finish line, but indeed, it is one of those circuits. There's so many different use cases. As meanwhile, we're starting to see our first laps come on the board. Knotavin there setting a 39.883, picking up a bit of a toe of a car that's come out the pit lane there. And what he does, so I think that is Garlic Dog, who's just making his way on. Yep, he is in the 199. So therefore it does look as though Knotavin immediately set the benchmark very high. And meanwhile, niCKaLaToR by comparison, well, that definitely seemed to be a bit of an early warm-up lap there. So he had his out lap. He's decided he needs another lap to see if he can improve a bit further in terms of getting those tyres warmed up before he does start to go on the full attack. So now he'll be on to his second flying lap. And well, he's only got that one plus another 4 to go. I think his philosophy at this point is, right, I need every little bit of tyre temperature. I need to get myself mentally prepared for this lap. It's not an easy lap around here. Very different style of lap compared to what we've seen previously. Although the fact that we have previously raced at Monza definitely will see our drivers here feel as though they're in a familiar land, but not quite a familiar one at that. And therefore it'll be interesting to see how exactly they get shaken up here. Looking to Omega, the wonderful livery machine there as he roars round around in the 101. And can he give us a 101 today of how to get it right around here? As he comes down towards turn number 12, looking as though he's got a little bit of company coming up behind him. However, won't be too upset about that, as I do believe that's going to be the machine of pancakes that's just following him into the stadium. As he comes through the stadium entry and shortly to make his way on out, we're going to get an on-board lap with Omega as he gets ready to go onto his second flying lap, and that's going to be the one that will be a much more aggressive lap most likely as he comes out the final corner. And let's jump aboard with Omega as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Mexico City Grand Prix circuit. Heading down towards turn number 1 for 3.8 race and a very long run here. That V8 will be maxed out as much as possible as he gets ready to upshift into 6th gear. His gear ratios have been set as tall as possible as well to maximise speed. And looks to his left-hand side for his brake marker. Braking at around about 100 centimetres from quarter apex, all the way down the gearbox to 2nd gear. Keep it in the middle of the road now into left-hander at turn number 2. Mount the curve, then transition into turn 3 and get the power down there. Car weaving wide a little bit of power oversteer there. And well, he decides to carry on with the lap. That may have been invalidated. But now bringing it over to the right-hand side here to open up turn number 4. Getting ready to go onto the brakes. Brake at 150 metres from quarter apex all the way down to 1st gear. Left into right. You can see they're having to position the car to get it over to the left-hand side to open up the next corner. And then running out wide there, but backs to the throttle. And, well, it looks like letting Pancakes go there. So deciding that he's completely botched the lap, he's going to have to go again. And Pancakes, meanwhile, just sneaks on through. And he carries on the story now as he makes way in to the middle sector. But so easy to make a mistake. Track limits here, definitely going to be punishing, particularly in this middle sector of the sweeping bends. And in fact, you want to mount these curves, but you've always got to keep 2 wheels in the white lines. If you go anything beyond that, then suddenly you're going to see that lap taken away from you in qualifying. And in the race, you'll be picking up a 1x. You may even be picking up a slowdown penalty, whereby essentially the iRacing system adjudicates that you have gained a legal time through crossing the track limits, and therefore you have to give it back. But that is on a rolling lap average, so therefore the one thing, many of you who might be mathematicians may be thinking already, that means I do not want to get a slowdown penalty at the start of the race. Yeah, that is correct, because of course iRacing at that point has no reference lap for you, so therefore it will be the biggest possible slowdown penalty, because it has no gauge of what time you would normally set through there. So the idea is, in the end, you never want to pick up a slowdown early on or breach track limits in the first couple of laps. Instead, you want to start potentially breaching track limits towards the end of the race. Now, if you're sat there thinking, are we encouraging drivers to cheat by saying that? No, not exactly. You'll see it in real-life motorsport as we see Tonlo go pole there, a 38.702. Well, hold up a second. Are we going to be seeing something different here today? Knotavin, of course, missed out on pole last time out to the teammate of Jen. Today, Tonlo, the man who's typically been the shadow of Knotavin, is this a bit of a magical lap coming together? That was his 3rd flying lap. Meanwhile, Knotavin on a lap right now. He's onto his full flyer. We've got a very close middle field as well, from niCKaLaToR all the way back to Omega. The fact that we do have 4 drivers separated by only 4 attempts there, a tenth per driver, that's the closest it's sometimes been this season. But as Knotavin taking it nice and easy through there, this is a warm-up lap, so he's getting ready to go once again. And well, we're definitely going to get the on board when he goes around for the next lap here. But it does seem as though Tonlo may have found a bit of time, as he has got back to the pit lane and he is emerging. But do keep in mind, of course, that when a driver goes into this qualifying session, they get the one out lap, and after that, every other lap they then do counts as a qualifying lap. So what this means is his out lap, his second out lap here, this is now biting into his 6 available laps. This is lap number 4 for him, and also he's only got 2 more to go. Beaver, meanwhile, just gets ahead of his teammate of niCKaLaToR at 41.096, but definitely not looking as quick as he once was. So therefore, right now, Beaver's got to find a bit more time, but Knotavin coming in towards the stadium section, making his way out around right now, and as he does so, number 28 driver, and definitely get himself all keyed up. And in fact, as he heads through the final quarter, well, let's see if he's going to carry on. He is going to carry on. And here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to potentially be the flying lap that could be the difference between pole position and second for Knotavin. But can he find pole? Here we go. So making his way down towards turn 1 then. As you can see, the gear ratio is definitely still tall, much like many of his rivals, as he gets ready to make his way into that left-hander, or in fact the right-hander, but onto the brakes. And as he does so, going all the way down there for 163 miles an hour. Right into left, and as he does so, keeps it nice and tight on exit. That's a lovely line there to open up turn 2 and then set up turn 3. And now feeding the throttle in from first gear to second and building up as quickly as possible. And we'll now bring the car over to the right-hand side here for niCKaLaToR and getting ready for the second chicane sequence. Looking for his brake marker, will be braking around about 150 metres down to second, then to first gear. And now getting over to left to open up turn number 5, clatters over the sausage curb, battles with a bit of power oversteer, and it was turn number 6, the very long hairpin here, double apex as well, but 2 very tight apex curbs, and now getting ready for the middle sector. It's been a good start. It's not been a personal best, but it's been close. And now in towards turn number 7, left into right here. This is where you want to straight line these apexes as much as possible to build up the speed. Coming out of turn number 8 at 107 miles an hour, and now into turn number 9. Tapping the brakes, dropping down to second gear, right into left, and now flat out he'll go all the way out towards turn number 12. You can see here how tall the gears are. You can really go down to low gears and not worry too much about hitting the rev limiter. But onto the brakes, so about 140 meters per quarter apex down to second gear. Into first, in fact, a quick upshift back into second, and into the stadium sequence down to first once more. Spending a lot of time in first gear today. Making his way from left to right to left through turns 13, 14 and 15. In towards 16. It's been a personal best middle sector for Knotavin. It's not been purple anywhere as he makes his way out of the final corner. Well, is this going to be pole position for Knotavin? No, it's not. It's second fastest at the 38.880. He's got one more chance of this. After that, that is going to be his qualifying laps completed. But right now, Knotavin, he's still got to find almost 2 attempts to Tonlo. Tonlo, meanwhile, is taking his time out there, and indeed, on that out lap that seems to be going on for an eternity. Well, right now, he'll be getting ready for what will be his penultimate flying lap very shortly, and try to raise the bar even more, but Knotavin is now going to have to go for it. Cat Daddy, meanwhile, is in third place, the 38.946. That's the improvement there from our number 69 driver. All looking nice. However, the only problem that he's got right now is the fact that whilst it is a good lap and he has got 7 attempts between himself and Pancakes, he's still got to find at least an attempt to get onto that front row and repeat what he did at Mosport. As he comes on out, DC, meanwhile, he just gets to the Pancakes. But it does seem as though we've got a top 3 that are much clear of the rest of the field. And then suddenly, it is looking very tight there to be the final driver on that second row of the grid. As DC cools down, and well, he has got one more lap available, but at this pace, he's not going to be using it. As he pulls the grass, that's going to invalidate the lap, and that is his qualifying session done and dusted. niCKaLaToR, meanwhile, he's on his final flying lap as he makes his way down towards turn number 4. And well, he's hoping he can move on to that second row. He's still ahead of his teammate Beaver for Dick Squared. But to be fair, well, it's one thing to beat your teammate, but right now you need to beat everybody else here if you want to be maintaining your spot inside the top 3 of the championship. As we do look to Garlic Dog, meanwhile. And here is the 109 driver, currently the slowest of all of our drivers out there, but to be fair, still finding time, and still does have 8 minutes this session, and this lap plus another 3. Knotavin heads towards the timeline, and as he does so, comes into the pit lane. So Knotavin will miss out on pole position for the 2nd time in a row. Well, Tonlo, I think he's been feeling very confident at this point, and that he's got the job done here for pole position, although he's staying out. And indeed, he's got this lap plus 1 more to go. So I think he reckons that he might have even more in the tank. But does he need to worry at this point? Well, the answer is no, because Cat Daddy makes his way towards the time in line as he crosses it. Is he going to improve? No, he does not. Although it should be noted that Cat Daddy has set a purple middle sector on that lap, so he's got some pace that he hasn't been able to tap into so far today, so he could be interesting in the race. But Tonlo right now seems to have this all wrapped up with 7 minutes to go, and indeed onto his final flying lap. Most drivers have completed their laps now. niCKaLaToR's just finished off his. You can see him then the rear of the picture, and then we get the focus on him as he comes down the start for the straight. Now we're just waiting for Omega's final lap to come together. Here he is, currently making his way in towards the middle sector, and then we've got GarlicDog with what is 3 more laps. But as Omega makes his way on through, one thing we were talking about until Tonlo surprised us all, and GarlicDog has just halved his deficit to the field in 10th place to 43.498. We were talking about track limits and the concept of encouraging drivers to cheat. Well, in any motorsport, whether it's simulated or real life, there are what is tricks to using track limits. And the idea is, particularly in the United Kingdom, and I suspect this is the same in the United States at a club and a national level. It may not be at an international level, to be fair, because it depends from series to series, but the idea is you get track limit warnings in reality, whereby it's normally 3 strikes and then you do get a post-race time penalty. The idea being that you will occasionally accidentally go beyond track limits as a result of a battle, alternatively as a result of just making an actual mistake. You can't be punished for the first time of getting things wrong, because the idea is, at the end of the day, everyone is human. You can make mistakes when you go racing. But if you intentionally start to make the same mistake over and over, or you're abusing track limits several times around a lap, that's when you will start to get the major warnings, and therefore that's where you get the 3 strikes and out policy with regards to 3 track limit warnings, and suddenly it's the post-race time penalty that's applied. And normally it's a very small one of only 5 seconds to begin with, and then it gets upgraded to 10 seconds and subsequent. That philosophy also applies here in iRacing. That's where you have instant point limits. The idea is that essentially you want to try and hold on to those instant points for as long as possible, i.e. not use them or have them added to you, because if you've got some available towards the end of the race, if you know there's a part of the circuit where you can run slightly wide at a corner and gain a 10th, albeit you use an instant point up to do so, why wouldn't you do it? Because at the end of the day, the instant points are there. The risk, of course, is, or the natural gamble, is that if you do it too soon and then subsequently you pick up instant points for other indiscretions later on in the race, such as contacts for another car, which are 4 instant points straight away, or just a loss of control, which is 2, then suddenly you may find yourself breaching the instant point limit and being given that drive-through penalty, let alone a disqualification should you go too far. So it is always a bit of a trade-off with regards to your track limit usage, whether it's on the simulator or real life, because everyone wants to do it. Indeed, until you get caught, it's not cheating, as my teachers used to say, but at the same time as well, you don't want to abuse it too much, because if you do get caught out, well, drive-through penalties are always costly, and particularly when we do have a very long pit lane that is on a very fast start-finish straight, well, you do the mathematics there, 2 + 2 = 4 in that regard, and you're going to be losing a huge amount of time if you do have to do a drive-through penalty at any point. But with all of the drives having driven through their qualifying session right now, -1, we're here with GarlicDog on his penultimate flying lap, and trying to find a little bit more time out there. And, well, right now, qualifying pace is not necessarily going to dictate how he's going to do in the race itself. Indeed, that's the wonderful thing, as we did see at Mosport, of course. Qualifying definitely did not represent exactly how the field finished, and around 90 minutes of race there, consistency is going to be absolutely key. Now, in terms of our weather for today, well, as you can see there, we've upgraded units. We've gone from Celsius to Fahrenheit, and indeed, we do have an ambient of 77 degrees Fahrenheit right now, and a track temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's quite a hot circuit, and that is going to make tyre life a bit of a big question around here, in the fact that will those tyres withstand the heat over the distance, and therefore you can imagine that our drivers will be thinking about tyre changes. Now, keep in mind that tyre changes are going to be done in parallel with fuel, and changing tyres is 7 seconds per tyre, so we'll not normally see all 4 tyres changed in a single pit stop, but what we could expect to happen is 2 tyres may get changed in the first pit stop, should we have multiple, and then another 2 may be changed in the next pit stop. We have a very limited amount of wind, however. We don't really have too big of a headwind or a tailwind around here. We've only got 1 mile-an-hour wind, so therefore that's actually going to be quite nice for our drivers, so they don't have to worry about losing or gaining an obscene amount of top speed on the straights. So it's definitely going to be a Mexico City Grand Prix today that, whilst the track surface is going to be warm, which you'd expect here in Mexico for this time of year, we're not expecting the conditions to be too challenging for our drivers. It's going to be time management that will be a bit of a question mark, but beyond that, this should be a relatively straightforward race when it's all things weather concerned. But as we do have GarlicDog right now, made his way on down, well, Biker Pilot has decided to make his way back out the circuit. So he saved up 1 lap. He's on an out lap at the moment, and he's got 1 lap left to go. And he's hoping he can move from 9th to further up the order. Currently half a second off of Beaver's time in 8th place. I wonder whether perhaps he feels as though he might be able to find half a second within the space of 1 lap. Well, it's going to be a very light car there. The only problem is, can he warm up the tyres enough before he goes on to his final flying lap? It's not to say he can't do it, but of course you normally do have 2 2 laps to get these tyres fully up to temperature. The lighter car may make this a little bit easier. And, well, what we're going to do, in honor of the fact that Biker Pilot has made his way back out into the circuit, is we're going to jump aboard for his final flying lap. He's made his way out of the final corner and building up the speed, the Canadian driver, as he does so here, going all the way to the top end of each and every gear. And you see that there on the steering wheel, the lights light up, and when they do go all blue on the very right-hand side, that's when you want to go to the upshift. Get the maximum power out of the car, and now coming down towards turn number 1. As he does so here, how early will he brake for this? Brakes at the foreboard, that's about 200 metres from apex. Turns the car in very aggressively there on approach to apex. Different line, but it worked nicely for him. And coming out to turn number 3, banning with a little bit of power oversteer there. That's the use of first gear catching him out slightly. And now coming onwards, well, Garlic Dog's into the pit lane did not improve, so therefore Garlic Dog will be staying in 10th place, although the lap time did improve, 4 tenths off of Biker Pilot now. And Biker Pilot comes down in towards turn number 4, mounts the curb there in first gear all the way through, and now heading in towards turn number 6. He gets ready to go onto the brakes here, turning nice and early there. That first gear really frustrating, I think. I think first gear is going to frustrate a lot of drivers here, given the fact it is a very, power-driven gear. More on that shortly. Let's focus on the lap. Going through the left into right at turns at 7 and 8. A little bit offline there, coming in towards 9. You can definitely tell he's not in the happiest mood at the moment with regards to the way the car's behaving. But here for turns 10 and 11, that was absolutely buttery smooth on entry into 10. Gets it nice out of 11 as well. And right now, heading down towards the stadium section. His first sector has not been an improvement. What about his second sector as he crosses the timeline? No improvement there. So he's going to improve. It's all going to be in the final sector in the stadium. But very scattered run through there. Through turn number 12 and in towards 13. And for Biker Pilot, I think right now this lap is not working out. Runs it wide there intentionally. They can do that, of course. That is not a track limit breach, running wide at turn 14, getting close to that wall. And he heads towards the timeline for Biker Pilot. Well, it's not been the happiest of laps in the first 2 sectors, and in the end, it's not a happy lap at all. It's a 43.368, and getting his previous best is a 41.32. And that is not going to be improved by any means. So therefore, right now, he's going to get things done in the race. That was not a happy end to his qualifying session whatsoever. But as he cools the car on down right now, well, the good news for him is that he's only 5 seconds away from transitioning into the warm-up period before we go racing. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, that is qualifying complete. And it is Tonlo who has taken his first pole position of the season. And what a margin to do it by 18 hundredths in the end over Knotavin. And Cat Daddy will line up behind them. But just before we do go racing, we have the 5-minute warm-up procedure now. This gives our drivers an opportunity to take a quick comfort break, and if they need it, to go do what they need to do. Whether it's go to the bathroom, get a top up of liquid refreshment, you name it, they've got 5 minutes to do it. But after that, they will be in their cars, and they'll be racing for 90 minutes here in this crown jewel race. Now, the one thing we were going to talk about at the end of qualifying there, but we made sure to keep an eye on Biker Pilot's lap. First gear. Why is it a very difficult gear to use? Well, if you drive a road car, everyone will know first gear. What you normally use first gear for is pulling off from a standstill. You don't normally use it to essentially try to accelerate through a bend. That's what the other gears are for. It applies the same in race cars as well. First gear is normally the standing start gear, or in the lowest speed corner sense, it can be used as well. But the problem is first gear, as well as gears that is very aggressive, it is normally the shortest wound gear, whereby it has the least amount of speed range in it, and it has the most power driven to the wheels. So therefore, the idea being in first gear, that really is give me everything or nothing to get the car moving from stationary. Beyond that, it's a very aggressive gear. So that's why we've seen a lot of drivers really struggling for these low-speed corners, because they're using first gear to get the best drive out the corner. But the problem is, if you haven't got the steering wheel completely settled down and you're not ready to counteract if there's any directional sway in the car, if the rear end is coming round still, given the fact these are mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars, these prototypes, well, the idea is that rear is really going to light up, and it's the rear tyres, whereby if they're out of balance, if not fully adhesive to the road, you suddenly get that oversteer phenomenon, because the rear of the car is trying to come round quicker than the front can keep it in control. And that's what we did see with regards to the onboard of Biker Pilot coming through turn number 6, and also through turn number, what was at 13, where the rear of the car just was not gluing on down. And I wouldn't be surprised perhaps in the race if some drivers opt to use second gear for those corners for a time, particularly when tyre wear starts to build up, because the more speed, the more power you are putting through the rear tyres, the more you spin them up, the more rubber you are ripping off the tyre. Not quite literally ripping off, but you get the idea. You're laying that rubber down, and well, the more wheel spin you have, the more rubber you are burning off of the tyre. And understand, but you don't want to burn too much, particularly when you've got to try and make these tyres last potentially a long distance. But remember, there are no mandatory pit stops in the race, so we are up to our drivers to see what exactly they do strategy-wise. Do they go for the 1-stop? Do they go for a 2-stop? Do they go for a 3-stop? It's entirely up to them. If we have to base it off of what we saw at Mosport, it's very possible that this race could be leaning towards a 1-stop, given the fact that our drivers at Mosport, some of them were able to go the best part of 40 to 50 minutes before they pitted, albeit with quite a bit of fuel saving. And well, you wouldn't be surprised they tried to do that here again today. But do you want to fuel save over the distance? Well, if you've got somebody to work with, most definitely. If you can fuel save down those straights, you are going to gain a huge tactical advantage when it comes to your strategy, just for the simple reason of the fact that you will be in a position whereby your rider in front is creating a nice break in the air for you, and you just simply sit behind and you pick up a load of speed, and also you can lift off the throttle slightly going into those braking zones, and therefore it does save you a couple of litres over several laps, and those litres can be the difference between you being the number 2 car and you being the leading car when the pit stops are all said and done. But Knotavin right now, knowing that he won't be starting on pole position today, he's got work to do if he wants to try and make it 5 wins in a row. He definitely has been the man who has conquered the LMP2 machine so far. But again, it's been quite intriguing, the fact as we come into these broadcasts this season, the fact that he did dominate qualifying in the first 3 rounds, and then suddenly at Mosport is his teammate that led the way in qualifying. He started 3rd, the two separated by Cat Daddy, and here today Tonlo has taken that pole position. And here is our pole sitter in the 535. Well, could there be a change in the guard? Could we see a new name finally take a win? Or will we end the first half of the season with 5 from 5 and knowing that there is a perfectionist in this racing order? Well, that is a question we'll have to wait for an answer to. But as we do see Tonlo making his way on through right now, just getting a gauge of the circuit and making sure as well to get himself all re-familiarised. This circuit has evolved slightly from qualifying, given the fact the rubber has been laid down. Also, the time of day has gradually moved on. So this circuit may be a little bit cooler, but there's a bit more rubber out there, so it's going to offer similar levels of grip, and that's what he's going around there for at the moment. Just make sure, get it all rehearsed in the mind, because there's no more rehearsals after this warm-up period. We are doing it for real, we are doing it in live action, and therefore our drivers will have no opportunity to recover from mistakes, unless of course they can put their money where their mouth is over the course of the race and make sure they pick up the time over the distance. As Tonlo heads down the start for the straight, and indeed won't complete the next lap, we're going to take a quick sip of water, ladies and gentlemen, because we suspect we're going to need it if the start of this race is as fast and furious as it was at Mosport. Well, water requires there, and indeed, if you hadn't had the chance to get yourself some liquid refreshment before you tune into the start of the race, you haven't got long, ladies and gentlemen, because the formation lap is about to come up, and after that we will be green flag racing. But as the warm-up session ends, it is time to head to the grid for round number 5 of the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series Season 12, the LMP2 season, brought to you today in the Mexico City Grand Prix. And so, as the drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our 5th round of the season. And it's Tonlo from BDS Racing who has taken his maiden pole position of the season with 38.702. niCKaLaToR Knotavin line up 2nd place, but almost 2 tenths behind in the end. The Canadian driver not having the performances that we've come to expect in qualifying again. However, to be fair, his race pace has been unconquerable so far, but can Tonlo put a spike in it today? Cat Daddy starts in 3rd for playing racing cars, hoping to make amends after difficulties at Mosport last time out and take his first podium of the season if he can in some time. Then we do have DC starting in 4th place there, and DC right now for Bond Life Motorsport having another opportunity perhaps at a podium. He hasn't had one so far this season compared to Cat Daddy, of course, who had that podium in round number 3, but he'll be hoping this time he may succeed. If not, the Canadian driver then has the 2 Americans of Pancakes of SimCity Racing and niCKaLaToR and Nick Squared behind, and the 2 of them separate in the end by a grand total of 7.5 tenths, but it really has been the top 5 being so close together, and then it's 6th through to 9th being closer together. niCKaLaToR just ahead there of Omega for 3.8 racing as the formation lap gets underway. And then we do have Beaver for Nick Squared only 3 tenths further adrift. And then we do have 3.8 racing's Biker Pilot starting in 9th place there. Head of Garlic Dog for playing racing cars, who was 4 tenths behind at the end of qualifying, but seemed to be improving time and time again. I think if he had a couple more laps, he may have been able to find even more improvements. But that is how they're all going to start this one, ladies and gentlemen. It's a 10-car grid. May not be the biggest grid out there, but to be fair, we've got some quality drivers out there. And why would we not be excited for the fact This could be one of those races whereby it could be completely topsy-turvy by the end of lap number 1, excluding what is going to come over the 90 minutes. But as they all head on through, it is a full formation lap here. So this is a perfect opportunity for our drivers to get as much temperature into those tyres as they can, albeit behind the automated safety car, which will be making its way around at around about 55 to 60 miles an hour. So they don't exactly have much space to play with, and that's why you're not seeing too many drivers do much weaving around here. Albeit they will be dragging the brakes every so often, whereby essentially you just go slightly on the brakes on while the straights just to warm up a little bit, and then you build up the accelerator. But they can't do what you sometimes see in other formation, that's particularly behind a manual safety car, whereby they'll intentionally fall away from the safety car and then try to close back up to it by aggressive acceleration and braking. Although we do see there a lot of weaving from side to side by one drives, that being Beaver there, and well, he wants as much tyre temperature as possible. I get the feeling right now he feels as though his qualifying session was not representative of what he brought to the table here today, and therefore he wants to try and prove a point in the run down towards turn number 1, and that is going to be the exciting part, because of course we do have the best part of 3/4 of a mile run all the way down towards the opening braking zone. Cold tyres, cold brakes, and of course the slipstream for everyone who starts further down the order. They look at a triple and not a quadruple toe, particularly for Garlic Dog and Biker Pilot on the rear row, and therefore they could come absolutely flying into turn number 1. They've got to pick the right spot to brake then. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some dives through that opening corner, but after that the field may separate a little bit, and it will be immediately into who's gained what at the start and who exactly then will be able to break apart from the rest of the field. Knotavin makes his way through the middle sector there, side by side with Tonlo at the moment. Well, both of these drivers they need a good start, but is it the right thing to be on pole? Do you want to be on that second row? Cat Daddy will be thinking so alongside DC, and the fact they'll both gain the toe of the leaders, but they will need to react well to Tonlo, who gets to dictate when exactly we do go green, and once he builds up the speed, if they don't react in time, they could be swallowed up by the rest of the field. As Tonlo right now, we look back for the rear of your pole sitters car for BDS Racing. Weaving from side to side there, getting all the final bits of tyre temperature he can. But as they make their way now into the stadium sequence, well, he'll need to look forward, not look backwards. And there you can see the wonderful camera angle that shows you the enormity of the stadium as they make the way through the hairpin of turn 13, and now only a couple quarters away. Tonlo lets the safety car start to pull away, and it is over to our pole sitter to take us away for 90 minutes of racing in round number 5, the Crown Jewel race from the Mexico City Grand Prix circuit. And as he builds up the speed, it's lights out and away we go for round number 5 of the championship as Tonlo roars his way down towards turn number 1. But as he does so here, building up the speed as quickly as he can. Well, the field has not reacted as well as perhaps they would have liked. Knotavin in particular not being able to stay too close here, and that's worked out a treat for Tonlo as he gets ready to make his way into that braking zone. But coming down there onto the anchors where you see DC looking up the inside immediately. Cat Daddy has fallen back. Further back, Beaver here side by side with niCKaLaToR. And these drivers right now are roaring and scoring the way between those apexes. And it does seem as though Beaver there has gained 3 places since the start, and niCKaLaToR there falling back into procession as they get ready to come down towards turn number 4. So a good start there, clean start from everybody involved, but niCKaLaToR and Beaver right now going side by side between each other and coming down to that braking zone. Well, that is going to be Beaver on the inside. They're covering off his teammate, and in the 2 teammates of Nick Squared, they're showing no lovers lost between them as they now make their way in towards turns 4, 5 and 6. But rolling the way in towards the next corner, and well, it's going to be a bit of a change of foot between those 2 drivers at the moment at least, but you can understand if they'll be thinking to themselves one thing and one thing only at this point, and that is what else can be done. And the answer is not quite much at the moment, because now they're all into the straight line procession. But Tonlo, a great start from him, definitely nailing that start very comfortably, and with a good start there now, he'll be hoping that he can start to move forward a little bit, albeit will he be able to when his rival is so close behind? Well, that's going to be all part of his story and his gamble, but will he be able to pull it off or will he not be able to? That is going to be the challenge that awaits him now as he rolls his way through in towards turn number 13. But we can see there Knotavin just simply playing the game of stay behind and stay close and trying to start saving a little bit of time and fuel. Further back, Cat Daddy looking for a potential move on DC, but this is going to be the first real time now. We're going to see them run the whole length of the start for the straight, and who exactly is perhaps going to go for a move and who's not. And here they come then, because after 1 lap, Tonlo leads, but gap is gradually coming down there. 2.5 tenths to Knotavin. Then it's 2 seconds back to DC, who's ahead of Cat Daddy and Beaver. Of course, DC getting the jump on Cat Daddy on the start, but here comes the swap potentially. No, Knotavin decides not to there. in the foreground of the camera shot. So therefore, he was just looking threatening. He's trying to be a bit of a menace. We can see behind Cat Daddy, there's Beaver here to 5th. Having started in 8th, moved to 5th, nice and early. niCKaLaToR behind. And then we do have Garlic Dog, Pancake Show, Mega, and Biker Pilot. They all round off. Oh, there's a spin, and that is Cat Daddy who's gone around. And well, it's not on lap number 3 this time, it's on lap number 2. So he's done it even earlier, but that spin's going to cost him dear. And Cat Daddy loses it coming out of turn number 3. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can, but let's go put him all the way down to the back of the order. But the good news is it happened early, so therefore the field has not spread as much as it could have yet. As being, well, Pancakes let it go wrong. That's at turn number 4. And as the 481 driver gets the car turned around and arrested, well, something's definitely gone wrong for him. But as we see there, Cat Daddy going side by side when they're going to immediately fight as soon as Pancakes gets recovered there. But as a saying, kick a man when he's down. And right now, Cat Daddy doing exactly that. So he takes the place of Pancakes, and Pancakes falls to the back of the field. But they're going to be each other's company for some time, we reckon. Meanwhile, Tonlo here on a mission to try and break away. The gap to Knotavin back up to 6/10 there for the middle sector. But of course, you would perhaps expect that going through that middle sequence of corners, that the car behind is going to suffer in the dirty out of the lead car. So therefore, the gap will gradually open up. It will oscillate back and forth, perhaps. Meanwhile, we do look back to Biker Pilot. There he is, chased after Yomega and Garlic Dog. And Yomega right now, having gained no places since the start, nor lost any. Currently 7th as where he started. He's on the back of Garlic Dog. We see a bit of a run deep there for his teammate Biker Pilot. And Biker Pilot having to get things back together again. But as they do come towards the end of this lap, Tonlo, meanwhile, and gap up to half a second here as he heads down the straight. Fastest lap race at 39.82. Knotavin 3/10 slow on that lap or thereabouts, but something tells me that right now Knotavin might be playing the game, which is just simply wait, watch, and listen. Don't do anything, which is essentially going to cost you time or indeed force you into a bit of a mistake. And as Knotavin comes out of the chicane sequence, we jump on board here with the niCKaLaToR giant. Lovely exit out of that sequence of corners, and I wonder here whether he's thinking about a move. He's looking to the inside. And again, it's more about here just trying to get into Tonlo's head, trying to get him to make a mistake rather than anything more than that. So the niCKaLaToR driver, eager to try and make a move. He might feel as though if he can take the lead this race, he's got the pace to break away. But what I think he's trying to do here is rather than make the move happen by forcing up the inside, his game plan instead is actually just to get into Tonlo's head, get him to make the mistake himself. And in doing so, he has to put zero effort into make the move. And therefore, it's minimum effort for maximum reward. Indeed, the best way to go forward is to be a bit lazy, some would say, and that's what the niCKaLaToR driver's trying to do strategy-wise. Albeit, I can tell you one thing, he's not being lazy inside the car at the moment. He's absolutely nailing those apexes. And we can see DC behind. He has dropped Beaver already. Beaver's now 1.5 seconds back. That previous lap was a half a second gain for DC. So DC here might be pushing a little bit early in the race just to give himself some breathing room and chasing after that first podium of the season. Well, if he can do it, it'll be great. But he won't be doing it if he makes a mistake like that going deep at turn number 13. And indeed, that's going to enable Beaver to catch right back up there by the best part of half a second alone. And niCKaLaToR is following. Now, Nick squared here, the two teammates together, 4th and 5th. This is looking actually quite good for them in the fact they will be able to use each other on strategy here, and whilst we can understand the fact that both of our two Nicks will be wanting to try and beat the other, the aim of the game is to beat your teammate without taking them off the road, of course. Well, I think you right now need to bite the bullet and say to each other, right, how do we best work together here to give ourselves a strategic advantage to get one of us on the podium, whichever one it is. And that's what they're going to need to figure out, because DC is not too far away, and if they can start saving the fuel and tyre life early, they may just be able to beat him on strategy later in the race. Meanwhile, Biker Pilot here, making his way through turns 1, 2, and 3, still following his teammate Yomega and Garlic Dog at the head of the group. Garlic Dog, of course, started in 10th place, up to 6th already, and qualifying definitely was not representative of what he brought to the table. He's looking very good in the 199, but right now he's got to hold off the two drivers behind. Yomega and Biker Pilot definitely right now keeping an eye on him, and more Garlic Dog here not wanting to make any mistakes. But as we do look back to our leaders for a brief moment, the first 5 minutes of this race complete, and they've been an exciting first 5 minutes, but everyone's settling in now for the Crown Jewel race. But with that, we need to take a look back at some big moments in the very start. Oh, that was a bit of an error from Knotavin. I don't know if you guys and girls saw that, went very deep there coming out of turn number 9, and in fact had to really hustle the car back over to the left-hand side. So dirty air just caused him to wash out a little bit. Not off track, to be fair, so no instant points gained. However, that is not a mistake you want to make this early on, because he will be starting to heat up the right side tyres when he does that. Particularly that front right will take a little bit of a bruiser as a result of having to really jerk the car back onto the racing line. But there you go, and that might explain why he is not able to get as close as he would like to, although his previous lap was the fastest lap of the race so far. Well, Tonlo raised the bar to a 39.220. It may be getting to the point here, well, Knotavin has achieved one part of what he wants to do, which is to put Tonlo under pressure, but what it's actually done is it's only encourage Tonlo to go quicker, and Knotavin now needs to try and stay with him. But of course, the quicker you both go, the more pressures on both you to push each other harder and harder. And I don't think Knotavin necessarily wants to have to push 100% in that dirty air right now. I think the game plan was to sit at 90%, but I wonder whether Tonlo is now reacting and saying, right, if we're going to go for this, I'm going to have to see if I can break away from you. As meanwhile, Garlic Dog there, I'm going very deep into one. However, Mega's not going to be able to really make a move as we look down over the top here of the 3.8 racing driver. And we're on his way up towards turn number 4 here. And again, close, but not close enough to think about an overtake, and instead perhaps just now starting to think more and more again about, right, if he's making one mistake, will he make more? The answer is yes. Garlic Dog goes deep, lock up on the front right brake, and Omega at this point just simply says, right, I'm taking that, thank you very much. Goes up the inside, lovely bit of manoeuvre in there, and Omega up into 6th place. Garlic Dog tries to come back, but once you're offline once, you're normally offline for the whole sequence of quarters, and that's exactly why Omega's been able to make his way on past as they now make their way into the middle sector. Looking back from the rear, we can see the fact that whilst he's moved into 6th, Sunny, biker pilot, now is going to be thinking, okay, if my teammate can do it, I can do it too. As they get ready to come to the end of the S's sequence, and the gap between them and the top 5 is now the best part of 8 seconds. So we've got 2 halves of the field here, quite literally, in terms of respective pace, but regardless of whether you're in the top 5 of the field or the bottom 5, there's plenty of battling action that's expected to unfold, and we're already seeing it here. And indeed, one thing to note as well is that Pancakes and Cat Daddy have caught up to this group, so they are approaching quite quickly, and that's going to be an interesting watch as well, particularly for Pancakes, the man who started in 5th today, and Cat Daddy, the man who started in 3rd. Both of them have had difficulties, and right now they're looking to recover from them as they go on to a 6th tour of the circuit. But speaking of those difficulties and recovery, well, let's take a look back in time and see exactly what happened from some of the big moments right at the start of the race, including Beaver on niCKaLaToR in towards turn number 1. So this was as they made their way down into the opening braking zone. And what we got to see here in terms of the 2 Nick Squared drivers is that niCKaLaToR had a brilliant start there, really maxed out the toe, got to the inside of his teammate, albeit then it was a bit of a counter-attack. But over the course of the opening couple of quarters, Beaver was able to squeeze his way through and made it happen. But understandably, niCKaLaToR definitely did want that place back, and it wasn't over until they got to turn number 4, whereby niCKaLaToR, looking around the outside at this point, did get a nose ahead, but Beaver in the end made sure to slice up the inside there on the brakes and hold on to the position. But then a lap later, this happened for Cat Daddy, who was in 4th ahead of them after losing out versus DC on the start. Well, came out of turn number 3, tried to get the power down, took a bit too much apex curb, and we're all added up together to see him go spinning around. But thankfully for him, he did not go to the barrier there, so no damage to the car, just some slight overheating to the tyres, and he was able to get it back together. But only moments later, we had this for Pancakes on the same lap. This was coming down in towards turn number 4. He was at the time behind Garlic Dog, and Omega was right behind, went for a move and tapped the rear of Garlic Dog's car. And unfortunately, the reaction force did send the car on a round. So Pancakes making an innocent mistake there. But thankfully for the race, it was only he who got turned on around. But even so, you've got to feel sorry for the man who definitely did very well in qualifying. But that relegated him all the way backwards to 10th place. But with that, we go back to your live racing. And as we do, well, still plenty more to come, no doubt about that. 10 minutes of the race done, and we've still got 80 to go, and your leaders right now are back together once again. So Knotavin now on a bit of a push here, as Tonlo, well, not quite sure what's happened on the previous lap, but one thing we can tell you is that Sunny Knotavin is absolutely pushing, and here he comes, looking to the inside again. Well, it's a bit of a rinse and repeat right now. He's definitely playing this whole game of, am I going to go for it or am I not going to go for it? He's keeping us guessing. I think that might be part of the master plan, if you will, as he tries to roll the way through turn number 6. But Knotavin can only keep doing this for so long before he puts himself under that mental pressure. And Tonlo, meanwhile, well, if he is feeling any pressure right now, he is not showing it, because that's what it looks like behind Knotavin's car, absolutely clear. But meanwhile, as we look to Tonlo's car, well, you can understand he's got a face full of what is the 28. However, the American driver here bounced his way over the curves. The BDS Racing car right now, well, I think his game plan just is control the lead, control the race, and don't make any mistakes. But if Knotavin can stay close, the theory is he would be able to fuel save, and then we would potentially see a bit of a swap in the pit. But that is all to be showed and told, because we've also got the question mark of how many pit stops will there be today? Will there just be the 1? Will there be the 2? We don't expect there's going to be 3 unless somebody's been a bit cheeky and picked up a penalty of some description. That's on as he exits out of turn 16 and 17. Gap back up to half a second on exit. He is getting the better corner exits, no doubt about it. But these straights just keeping Knotavin well within attacking distance every time. But right now, Knotavin gets close, but he doesn't want to risk it. And I think that is purely on the basis of the fact that if he does start to risk it, then he is going to open up a fight. And again, DC, meanwhile, well, that's interesting. Last lap was a whole second off of the leaders. Perhaps that part in itself is not that interesting, but Beaver and niCKaLaToR match. In fact, niCKaLaToR was 3/10 faster. So therefore, Nick Squared right now definitely getting close to the podium spot. And DC here, after that great start moving from 4th to 3rd, getting the jump on his rivals down towards turn number 1. Right now, he may be getting jumped later on. Now, further back, Cat Daddy is into 7th place here. The man who started all the way back up in 3rd. We has found his way on through past Biker Pilot and Garlic Dog. Now, as they make the way down here in towards the next braking zone, we can see Pancakes there on his recovery drive of his own. And I believe we did miss Cat Daddy's progress through the group there. That was whilst we were catching a replay. Meanwhile, Pancakes are looking for a move. That's going to be a straightforward one as Garlic Dog goes deep there. And the woes of the opening 6 quarters for Garlic Dog continue as Pancakes now up into 9th. His next target will be Biker Pilot, 2.7 seconds away. So that's a change position there. Garlic Dog right now just going a little bit too deep, still getting used to those brakes. As meanwhile, swap of places here for niCKaLaToR and Beaver. And if I had to guess, I would say I think Beaver there picked up a slowdown. So that looked as though the car was intentionally pulled over to the left-hand side and was off throttle. I suspect track limits there coming through the S's may have bitten him a little bit. Unfortunately, we don't get that data here in our time in tower. We have to guess whether a driver's got a slowdown. But normally, if you see a car going that slowly and tight to the wall coming out of turn at number 11, it's normally a good sign they have cut the track limits. Most likely at turn 9, they've probably hit the apex curve a bit too early, and therefore they've cut it to the point whereby they've been deemed to have gained time, and therefore they've had to give it back. But speaking of giving ourselves back to what is the battle for 6th place, Cat Daddy after Omega here as they come on down, and well, getting closer and closer once again, and this time it's going to be a driver who is a bit closer to him on pace based on their qualifying pace. And what we can see, 3.5 attempts to get ready for the braking zone for turn number 1. He's not going to be quite close enough here to get this move done initially. Instead, he's just going to have to wait a little bit of time as they come from right into left. Tonlo, meanwhile, under pressure of Knotavin. Knotavin definitely staying right glued to the back of him here as we ride on board the dashboard of the number 28. And at this point, I think now Tonlo may have got into a bit of a position whereby, whilst he has been controlling this race, Knotavin now might be trying to control the narrative behind him, because Knotavin was struggling to stay this close earlier on, particularly for this sequence of corners. You can see there's still a little bit of understeer creeping in. Tonlo there making a mistake of his own, in fact running deep at turn number 10, almost cutting turn number 11, getting away with that just about. If he'd gone any wider than that, that would have been a slowdown penalty for Tonlo. So now the pressure is on the leader here, where Knotavin was really struggling for the first 5 to 6 laps in being able to stay in that dirty air and feel comfortable. Now that he has found the key to that success, and now he's been able to change his racing line and change his speeds in order to make sure he doesn't understeer out or the car does not go against him, now Tonlo's finding that he's got that increasing threat behind that's not going away. Once they make the way down the start-finish straight, that gap stays at half a second again, but that is where the intrigue is, in the fact that right now Knotavin definitely seems to be in position to save some fuel, and well, I suspect when we do get to the first pit stop, that is where we're going to see a potential change. They'll be even closer than they were before. But Cat Daddy and Omega, here they are, as a little bit of a run wide. They're coming out turn 16 to 17 for Cat Daddy. Small brush with the wall. That's not going to be fatal by any means at all, but the fact of the matter is that shows you how hard he is pushing. And Omega right now just simply holding his ground and thinking to himself, he's going to have to catch me first, and then he's got to find a way to pass me. And passing is not easy when you've got to battle for a wall of dirty air. Of course, there is that natural point whereby you get so close to the car in front, in the end, the dirty air has very little effect. It's normally within 2 attempts that suddenly that effect goes away, because you are completely within the hole that is punched into the air by the car in front at that point. You're gradually trying to get towards that space. It changes from car to car. Every car has a different aerodynamic model, understandably, due to design, and that is reflected here in iRacing. Right now, in the LMP2s, if you're not within 2 tenths of the car in front, you're always going to feel as though you've got that dirty air effect, that understeer that creeps in it, and then suddenly, when you literally are riding the rear bumper of your rival, that dirty air becomes less of a problem, and you really have the optimum position to go on the attack. But when you're getting that close, you really are within touching distance to your rival. And that's one place you don't want to be when you are going into a braking zone, is right behind them. Because understanding the concertina effect normally does mean that you're going to end up tapping them on the rear end, and they won't be too impressed about that. Indeed, the little book of stewarding from the J2ICS series will be thrown at you. And while I say it's a little book, but I do believe at the moment the number of pages in it has gone up to about 1 kilogram in weight, and you don't want that hitting you in the chest, I can tell you that. But meanwhile, hitting hard and fast, here comes Cat Daddy looking up the inside of Omega as they go onto the brakes, and when in quickly throws up the inside. Omega doesn't really offer too much of a defence there, but then again, Cat immediately takes the spot, and the man who started in third, well, Omega right now will just glue himself to the back of him for as long as he can. Meanwhile, Pancakes there, side by side with Biker Pilot. Hold up a second, we've had a spin coming out of the stadium. That's Omega has gone around at turn 14 into 15 as he goes to get it recovered there, slowly turning the car, and he does so, stays off racing line. So there's been a bit of drama there just after he's passed. Meanwhile, Tonlo here, the closest he's been for some time versus Knotavin. 2 attempts they come down towards turn number 4. Is he going to throw the dummy here to look up the inside? He is again. And, well, I think that's also just to try and bleed some of the overspeed there before the braking zone to sight his brake marker as well, perhaps. But right now, Knotavin is absolutely gluing himself to the back of his rival. But meanwhile, coming to Pancakes, looking up the inside of Biker Pilot there. A little bit of touch between the two of them, but they get away with it. And Pancakes moves into 7th place there. Lovely move up the inside into turn 1. But now Biker Pilot's going to be all over the back of him as they make the one down, and we ride on board with the SimCity Racing driver, and it is going to be a move from Biker Pilot, yes or no? The answer is going to be no. He stays behind there, a bit of a lift and coast, I suspect. He came into turn number 4, and the 42 driver here right now does take a little bit of a peek up the inside, a little bit aggressive there, and Biker Pilot in the end realising a bit too late, perhaps that wasn't the space to go for, and now that's going to open up that gap even more. The enthusiasm is definitely there, but the timing is off. And as he comes in towards the middle sector, he won't want to make that mistake again. And Pancakes, I think, was wondering what on earth was going on there. But Biker Pilot trying to get his nose in, and then realised just about it wasn't the right time to go for it. And therefore, the two drivers have got away from it. It'll be minimum damage to either car. Perhaps a little bit of paint chipped off. Perhaps while the front canards might have been slightly stripped to its carbon fibre. But otherwise, a Biker Pilot, that car should be A-OK to carry on. But as he heads onwards, well, definitely a bit of an intriguing lap this one. There's been a few change of places, and indeed on the previous lap as well, as more lap times are coming on in. And, well, as these drivers see this lap to its conclusion, and we do see our leaders going on to lap number 12. Let's take a look back at some of those moments from only moments ago, including what exactly happened to Omega, as also the move by Cat Daddy on Omega. And here we go, back in time, ladies and gentlemen. So, firstly, this was Cat Daddy making the move on Omega, coming in towards turn number 12. So this predated the spin for Omega. Up the inside, straight and forward move, get it done under braking. Omega, meanwhile, well, he was then tucked in behind, making his way through turn number 13. As he did so, what went wrong for him? The answer, took a lot of exit curb there, and that's what sent the car around, mounted the curb at turn number 14, and trying to get the power down. The rear of the car was higher, well, one side of the car, the right-hand side was higher than the left. It overcompressed the left rear suspension, and that tyre in had no traction to it, and that's what sent the car in around. So that's where the drama came from. And then we did, of course, have this move from Pancakes on Biker Pilot only moments later, and this was heading down the start-finish straight. And, well, in the end, looking up the inside, a classic move here under braking in towards turn number 1, and Biker Pilot not reacting too much. Was there a touch? In fact, no, there was not. The camera angle suggesting there was, but an alternative camera angle there showing there was no contact between them. Nice clean move between the 481 and the 42, and in the end, Pancakes got ahead, because then we did have this counter-attack from Biker Pilot, and I think here he wanted to go for the move, but perhaps he should have gone for it to turn number 4 if he wanted it, because what you'll see here is they came in towards the left-hander, very quick on entry there. Biker Pilot really good under heavy braking, and then that small touch there, and I think in the end, I wonder whether actually he didn't mean for a move. I think he pulled the car to the inside, perhaps he broke a little bit later than he should have, and therefore what he tried to do is give himself some space and give Pancakes the opportunity to see that the car was going to come in a bit tighter to the apex, but unfortunately Pancakes didn't quite notice that in the nick of time. But either way, they've got away with it, and it's back to your live racing we go. And as we do come back, well, with those moments, there's surely more to come, and we're looking back to your leaders now. The two closest cars on circuit at this time, and Knotavin and Tonlo still together here. Now, at this point in the race, when we're getting closer and closer towards half an hour complete, what are drivers starting to think about more and more? Well, if you're Knotavin, you're trying to think about, okay, where do I go for the move, or do I purely do it in the pit lane? If you're Tonlo, what you're trying to think about at this point is, have I saved enough fuel? Am I on target? Am I +1? Am I -1 in terms of number of laps of fuel? Also, how are the tyres feeling? Can we get away with carrying on with those tyres? He bounces his way over the apex curb there of turn number 8. Gets away with that very nicely. That was the perfect cut there. And, well, opens up that gap to Knotavin to almost a whole second. He gained 3 tenths for that one corner alone. And that's what happens when you nail this. You are able just to break open that gap. But, of course, the only problem is you then got to try and get to 2 seconds away. If you can get a gap of 2 seconds, you will break the slipstream. And the turf course becomes very significant from 1 second and closing. Beyond that, it is a very slight effect there where you gain little by little. But with all things, if you've ever seen an exponential graph, you can imagine the slipstream is similar to that. In the fact, the closer you get, the more prominent the effect is. And these cars do have a lot of downforce on them. And therefore, you really do gain that close. When you get closer and closer, in half a second, you are gaining massively. On in towards turn 1, and right now the 5.35 and BDS Racing, well, holding that gap open, but we know that Knotavin can close it on down. He seems to be going through what is waves here. He's like a sinusoidal curve at this point. He's one moment at a peak in terms of how much pace he's delivering, and the next moment he decides to go for a bit of a trough there and just fall on back. And we believe it's just as much Tonlo's pace that is Knotavin trying to control his race and see whether he can find a way to strategically make the magic happen. Although under braking there in towards turn number 4, interesting, closed up by the best part of 2 attempts under braking, so that is one of Knotavin strengths as well, is that he does seem to have a mastery of his left foot. Presumably he's using his left foot for his brake pedal, and normally you do use 2 feet on the simulator, although some drivers do still use 1, like you would in perhaps a conventional road car, particularly driving in the United States of America, of course, because automatic is what most drivers learn in that country, rather than manual. Manual, I believe, is a bit more optional, where in the United Kingdom, it's funny enough the other way around, whereby you are normally mandated to learn a manual. As always, if you only learn an automatic, you cannot drive a manual car. A little bit of a tidbit or trivia for you. If you ever do have a game of Trivial Pursuit or a pub quiz in the United Kingdom, if you don't pass a test with a manual car, well, you won't be allowed to drive a manual until you pass a specific test with that. You can't do the automatic and get them both clear. Intriguing, no? But still, from that intrigue, we come back to the intrigue on the circuit. And right now, Tonlo and Knotavin, those are the 2 big actors at the very front. DC, meanwhile, now the best part there of what is 13 seconds behind them. As we've got some more personal bests coming in from our lead drivers. They're into the 38s now. They're absolutely turning up the pace up front. Meanwhile, DC, by comparison, delivering 39 still. In fact, that lap a 40. Meanwhile, niCKaLaToR and Beaver, the 2 Nick Squared drivers, still giving chase, albeit their pace. Definitely fluctuating right now, and it does seem as though the pace there for niCKaLaToR in particular, half a second slower that time around, with Beaver closing back up a little bit. But again, this could be the pair just keeping themselves equidistant from each other and keeping their sights firmly set on that 3rd place man. But to be fair to DC, after missing out on the opportunity of what could have been the 4th place finish last time out, well, here today he'll be hoping that might come his way. And in terms of the podium finishes we have seen so far this season, beyond the fact the top step has always been occupied by Knotavin, we have seen 2nd places for Squilliam, also Simply Steve and Tonlo, and we've seen 3rd places for Tonlo, Beaver, Cat Daddy, and therefore we've got a bit of diversity for our bottom 2 steps to the podium, but this man has yet to take a podium, nor has niCKaLaToR. He would love to take his first podium of the season today to wrap up the first half of the season in style. There's no season break after this, but right now, well, he's got a lot more to do if he wants to be able to achieve that. But making his way on through and in towards the latter half of the middle sector. A little bit offline there, went a bit deep, but no dirty air. I think right now, as the car is getting lighter, the confidence is starting to build more and more. And that's the thing with these cars as well. Qualifying fuel, you don't really have that much fuel in the car. Meanwhile, race fuel, you'll be maxing out. Oh, a bit of an error there from niCKaLaToR, and well, confidence misplaced. Trying to carry a lot of speed in towards turn number 12, and the car in the end sliding on him. In fact, he wanted to come around, and the car suddenly went, actually, there's not enough grip. The front actually gripped up quicker than the rear there, and that's why it started to understeer straight on. The front tyres just simply said, no, we're going this way instead, and well, driver in the end of niCKaLaToR just was not able to get that car to stop, so therefore that's cost him 3 attempts there to DC. Beaver's still 2.2 seconds back, and seems right now to be holding behind in station. Cat Daddy, he's still on a charge, and right now gaining a second a lap on 3rd through to 5th. So, with the fact he's 7.5 seconds behind, I wouldn't be surprised here within the next 10 minutes or so, he'll be right there with them. Albeit he won't be if we lose him from the material ether. Hopefully that's not a sign of a technical issue to come for Cat Daddy. We don't want to see a retirement of any drive through to a technical issue. It's the last thing we want to see at the end of the day. There's Pancakes meanwhile, with Biker Pilot a little bit further back. And then we do have Yomega and Garlic Dog just completing their current lap. Meanwhile, back to those leaders we come. And Tonlo and Knotavin still there. Knotavin back once again. And, well, with the lightness of the car now, Knotavin is definitely starting to get a little bit more aggressive. Whereas running wide earlier on for the Essage, you could say it was the dirty air causing understeer. I think right now the night racing driver is really goading himself on here in the lovely blue liveried machine. through that right and into left of the stadium. The hairpin here, well, the lap times right now between himself and his rival are practically equal at this point in the race. So therefore, the game is keep close and carry on. Well, the pit stops, I think, are going to be what potentially seal the deal here between these two, and then it will be the final stint where all the excitement will kick off if things do not change, or say if they do, but neither one is separated from the other. But right now, as long as they stay within 1.5 seconds of each other, this race is very far from done and dusted as they go on to another tour. Indeed, Knotavin right now does seem to be playing the game a little bit here, which is stay within that 1 second window and don't let it increase, whatever you do. Tonlo, well, he's got no luxury here other than just to try and manage his race, keep an eye on what's going on behind, but never take his eyes off the prize in front of him, because that's how he's been absolutely faultless thus far. And well, could this be the way to a first win of the day for him, or will this man that we ride on board with take 5 wins in a row and really be the driver who's dominating the championship? Well, but he can't seal the deal today. Not this early by any stretch of the imagination, but you can understand the fact that if he takes 5 wins in a row for the first half of the season, for the second half of the season, he can really afford to be runner-up in most races, and he will wrap up the crown come the season finale. Oh, that's just quick conjecture. We don't have any solid mathematics to prove it, but that's our thesis here. As meanwhile, well, as they continue to push on, we can see that gap coming into the middle sector, getting closer and closer on entry, and it will expand gradually through the natural sway of these cars as they roll their way up towards turn number 12. But from then, we come back to Garlic Dog at the back of the field. The man, of course, who definitely had a bit of a difficult qualifying session, but did enjoy a good bit of pace until a couple of mistakes came in, and that definitely put him back into 10th place. But to be fair to the 199 driver, I think for a lot of drivers here at the J2ICS Championship Series, learning the LMP2s has proven quite challenging. They are not easy cars to drive because you have a huge amount of downforce in this car. Having only spent a little bit of time in the simulator myself a couple of years ago driving this car, just at Mosport, the one thing that's crazy, and a friend of mine who was teaching me at the time, is the fact you really have to trust the car. And the thing is, your right foot, the throttle pedal, that is your biggest friend in these machines. The brake pedal's also a good friend if you do want to make some of the heavier braking zones. But you've got to believe the more speed you carry into the corner, the more the downforce works, like an open wheel racer such as a Formula 1 car or a Super Formula SF23, both available on the iRacing platform, of course. And the whole idea is you need to trust the downforce will do the job, particularly through medium to high speed corners. These lower speed corners, you've got to be much better in your mechanical grip approach, whereby you need to make sure that the tyres are all nicely gripping up, and therefore you're not too eager with your throttle pedal. But as soon as you get to that middle sector, as long as you can carry the speed and you've got confidence with the steering of the car, you've got to believe the car is going to make the corner. And that's the hard thing. It's trusting the car is going to do it, because we've raced a whole variety of machines here at the J2ICS Championship Series, whether it be GTEs, GT3s, you name it. And those cars, of course, not having anywhere near as much downforce as these machines, and that's why they're a very different beast to tackle. But that's the wonderful thing about racing and iRacing. Of course, you've got so many different machines, so many different disciplines, and it works for some. Some drivers love high downforce cars. Some, meanwhile, prefer cars with a lot less downforce and a lot less speed. Indeed, the same to be said about every type of car and the style of driving. Indeed, every season, a bit of variety, it always brings to life a different style of racer, and if one has to adapt to it. But right now, our two leaders here, they've definitely adapted best to it as they come towards the end of the opening half an hour. And through the stadium sequence they come. Knotavin there still. And Tonlo at this point, the gap normally was oscillating. Takes a lot of apex curve there at turn number 16. I wonder if he's now starting to feel that pressure. It's really starting to come together. And the one noticeable thing is that in the last 4 laps, Knotavin is no longer falling away come the end of the lap. He's actually staying very close here. Well, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he's seriously thinking about a move. And if he can make the move now, it could be the perfect time to try and get it done. Looks the inside into turn number 1. Is it going to come? No, not quite. He's toying with us here. He's toying with Tonlo as well. He's making us all guess when this move is going to come, but not at the moment at least. As meanwhile, change of places. Now it's going to be Omega going up the inside of Biker Pilot, or around the outside, which we're already saying, towards turn number 12. The two swapping around, and Biker Pilot there giving up the spot to his teammate thereabouts. Albeit the two of them still together. I think that might be a bit of a strategic call there. Meanwhile, niCKaLaToR, well, he's got Beaver closing. So niCKaLaTOR's fallen off a little bit in the last couple laps. The fact of the matter is, half a second loss to DC again. And I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Squared are on the radio to each other saying, well, what are we doing here? Because right now, we've got the lead car, which is slower than the rear car. And the problem is, Beaver is matching the pace of DC. He's not gaining or losing. Well, I wonder if perhaps this is to try and help him. If he can get into the toe of niCKaLaToR, he might be able to essentially slingshot his way along the straight and gain a bit more time and get close, because DC now has a 3-second gap to the pair. And it is gradually growing little by little. And that is going to be a notable problem as they get towards the end of the first stint, in the fact that DC right now has been bought plenty of space with regards to the pit stop, even if Beaver has done some fuel saving. Well, normally, in terms of the amount of time you gain through fuel saving when you have a pit stop, it's somewhere in the region of 2 to 3 seconds at most. The most extreme cases, you can gain up to 4 seconds, perhaps, depending on the length of the race and the size of the fuel tank. And these cars do have quite big fuel tanks, to be fair to the drivers. But the problem is, making that bigger swing, it requires you to absolutely maximise your fuel saving, and normally it does come at the cost of a bit of race pace, which you make up for, of course, when you've got a teammate or another car to tow off of. So as Beaver comes on through out of the stadium and on to the next lap, the niCKaLaToR driver right now might be thinking to himself, well, this could be a good opportunity here to calm things down as he makes his way down that start-finish straight. Wiper on there. It's not because there's rain falling, I promise you that. It's clear skies outside the commentary booth, but it is because of the fact they're getting some dust and gravel off of the front windscreen. As he comes down, you'll notice there the light's going off on the steering wheel. He's completely coasting there, all the way down in towards turn number 1, coasting from about 350 meters away. That's going to save him quite a nice chunk of fuel, and he'll be doing that into every heavy braking zone here. So I think that's what niCKaLaToR have decided to do. They're going to sacrifice niCKaLaToR here as a bit of a strategic pawn to give Beaver the opportunity to leapfrog him coming into the pit lane, as well coming into that into the braking zone here. Decides not to lift and coast there, gets nice and close, and I think if he can make a move on his teammate shortly after saving some of that fuel, it's just going to give him some confidence as DC still ahead. And in fact, that last lap, DC was 7 tenths slower than niCKaLaToR, so therefore DC and niCKaLaToR right now seem to be changing times around, keeping us guessing every step of the way. But Beaver's the one we think has actually the fastest of these three. The problem is he's in the wrong order of this sequence. He started in 8th. He didn't have the... Oh, that was a snatch! My goodness, that was very close to going around there, coming through turn number 9. And when the end coming off that curve, the car just simply not being happy. And well, Hannah catch the car quickly. The American driver and doing a great job of catching that. Many would have lost that at that point, but not Beaver. And well, if he keeps making mistakes like that, he's definitely going to feel as though this car and him are no longer friends. But as they come down into the stadium sequence, he's not going to worry about that this time, surely. As well, much tighter sequence of corners here, but you'll notice he's really attacking those curbs. He's got a car set up to take them, but the thing is, the more and more you get greedy with them, it's not riding the curb that's the problem necessarily if you set the ride height up right, and indeed the bump stops to the suspension. It's what happens if you mount them too high, because one or two things can happen essentially. If your ride height's higher but not high enough, you will ground the car out on the curb. Essentially, the centre of the under tray suddenly just literally slides on the curb. So essentially, like a skateboarder in the way, you're 50-50 in your way along that curb as much as possible. So the car's tyres are not actually touching the ground and they get an interruption of grip and traction, and that can send the car around. Alternatively, what can happen is essentially you hook a tyre over the inside of the curb, and that will pull the car around. But because these curbs are so high, what it actually does is it means the rear tyre, the one on the opposite side of the car, so the one that's hooked over the curb. So you can imagine if it's a right-hander, it'd be the rear left tyre, because the front right would hook over the curb. Suddenly, the rear left tyre will be doing all the hard work, and it will have so much pressure on it in order to grip up that the car will lose traction all the way around, and the car can go around very quickly. And we believe that might have been what had happened to none other than, I do believe it was in fact it was Omega earlier on when he did have that spin in the stadium section where it went on around. That is the theory we have as to why the car came loose. But right now, we'll put in the past behind to the present. niCKaLaToR definitely seeing Beaver very firmly in his rear view mirrors as the unique squared pair. I do love how they've done the liveries on these cars. In fact, they are identical liveries, albeit the colour pattern is slightly different there. So you can tell niCKaLaToR is niCKaLaToR because he's in the blue Nick Square car, whereas meanwhile Beaver is in the red one. And if this is giving them inspiration to swap the colours around next time, guys, well, you're more than welcome to. You'll confuse my mind even more so. We do love the livery patterns between these drivers. And that's why the things as well, in the fact that our drivers are encouraged for their teams to run identical or matching liveries, or liveries that have a colour match in a way, or a pattern match. That way we can discern who exactly is who, and we're really embodying the team spirit here in this championship, whereby there are two drivers to each and every team, much like you would see in the likes of Formula 1, for example. So therefore, we do have that team's championship as well as our drivers' championship. Indeed, there's honours to be played for everybody here. As meanwhile, we look back to Biker Pilot, who after losing out to Omega a few laps ago, back on lap number 18, well, right now 2.5 seconds behind, gradually staying with him in terms of time, and he is making sure that Garlic Dog is nowhere near close at the moment. Garlic Dog down by the best part of 20 seconds almost, as Biker Pilot crossed the timeline there, and 4 tenths slower than the Omega this time around, but him and his teammates seem to be swapping the lap times back and forth. But meanwhile, hold up a second, Beaver has found his way past niCKaLaToR coming in towards turns 4, 5 and 6. I wonder if niCKaLaTOR's gone a bit deep there coming in towards the second trio of corners, because that swap has happened at long last. And, well, now, will we see Beaver be able to hunt down DC? DC's 2.8 seconds up the road. Here is the man we're talking about. And then there are the two Nick Square cars right now. And will they be attacking enough to make themselves cubed at this point? We will see. But as he comes out of the S's sequence, already Beaver here starting to pull a little bit of time. I think he will repay the favour to niCKaLaToR, at least for what is one run on the start-finish straight, which is to give him that slipstream. But after that, I wouldn't be surprised if he'd be encouraged to absolutely go for it. Through the stadium there, and niCKaLaToR right now close, and that's where he needs to be. He needs to be within really half a second coming out of turn 16 in order to maximise the amount of slipstream he gets here onto that start-finish straight. Such a long straight, and we're staying well within reaching distance there. And that's exactly what you'll want now as they power the way down towards turn number 1. But that lap will immediately DC a whole second slower by comparison with Beaver and niCKaLaToR. That, well, that is a sign of what is to potentially come here, as right now, DC may be feeling pressure. And when he notices there's a bit of swap behind, he may be pressuring himself into mistakes. He might be thinking, okay, have they decided to swap the cars around because they're coming for me? Or is it the fact that niCKaLaTOR's made a mistake? You start to second guess yourself here. And all you can do at that point, really, is focus on what you can do as a driver. And is keep delivering the laps, not make any mistakes, and make sure you are ready on strategy. So it does look as though we're heading towards one-stop territory here. Nobody is coming after 30 minutes of racing, which would normally indicate we would be expecting a two-stop. So I think the fuel tanks are going to go the best part of 40 to 45 minutes as a minimum. Ideally, they want to try and push them to around 50 minutes if they can, to give themselves a bit of a lighter second stint. It's always a bit more comfortable on the car. Knotavin and Knotavin are two leaders. They still stay absolutely attached to each other. No change between them, albeit the lap times right now being traded as if on the stock market floor. Through turn 6 they come. Neither drive defects to the pit lane this time around. And, well, onto a 24th turn of the circuit. And it's going to be Tonlo who leads, but Knotavin that time 3/10 faster. But we've seen it oscillate back and forth. Beaver and DC, well, if we needed a visual that's going to show that gap is coming down, there it is, because we're not showing you the gap time in the bottom right corner of your screen. We're showing you what you can see on screen. That is the fact that gap has come down to 1.7 seconds already. In fact, 1.5 as they come out of the stadium sequence. Beaver is flying right now. That final sector is DC's Achilles heel. He does not like the stadium section at all. He's just lost 3/10 there in the space of 3 quarters. So that is his weakness. I think Beaver recognises it. On the straight, however, it does seem as though DC may have a little bit more speed in the car because he is gaining on Beaver here in the run. So I wonder if the team with the number 3 driver have set the car up perhaps on the straights a little bit more than the corners. So perhaps they've decided to go all in on what is taking some rear wing off the car just to make him feel a bit more comfortable when it comes to Beaver and niCKaLaToR behind. But understandably, well, if he's got less downforce in the bends, that's going to cost him time. Although the middle sector, intriguingly, is not really different between the two in terms of lap times. Last time around, when in fact, bar my words, they were different in the middle sector last time. It was a 39.68 for DC, it was a 39.36 for Beaver. So that would be an indication that we are definitely looking at a car that's running a lot downforce, a lot less downforce, as DC makes his first major error of the day there. Running wide coming out of turn 6, that'll be an off track. It won't cause him a slowdown because he will lose time for running out that wide. But right now, definitely some mental pressure is being applied here. And right now, it's not because Beaver is telepathic, but it's just because he's a growing threat as they come towards the end of the halfway point of this race. But as he comes on through, meanwhile, Cat Daddy, he's closing up to this group as well. He has been lapping, and the best part of what is half a second faster a lap on average. So he's going to get involved in this sooner rather than later. We thought he would. We were talking about it earlier. The fact he was 8 seconds back, if many of you may remember earlier on. The best part of 8 laps to go. He has been stripping that time out. And right now, well, the number 69 driver here, he could be a very present threat for the top 5 and not the podium. And that fight for the final podium spot is definitely going to get interesting when we do start to see the pit stops in terms of who comes out where. Meanwhile, back to the front. Well, Tonlo and Knotavin, 1.5 tenths is the gap here as they come down towards turn number 4. Surely he's not going to keep everyone waiting. Knotavin looks to the inside. He's going to go for it this time. He's been waiting this long. Tonlo's going to defend outside to inside. Coming on through turn number 5 they go. Knotavin goes to the switch back here. Does he get a good exit? Yes, he does. The traction's there. He's on the inside into turn number 6. Now, will Tonlo be able to hold it all the way around the outside? He's going to carry on too wide here. Lovely bit of defensive drive from Tonlo. He's going to the inside in towards the S's sequence. And Knotavin at this point, he's going to switch back to the inside, but that's not going to work. And well, Knotavin in the end, he does fall backwards there as he gets the bugs off of the windscreen there and being wiped off by the wiper. But Knotavin going for his first potential move, and it's understandable why, as we have now crossed the threshold for 50 minutes remaining in the race. He's now thinking more about strategy and track position, and he's done all the work to stay close. But right now he wants the lead before he comes into pit lane to guarantee himself what could be the lead coming out of the pits. He doesn't know how much fuel Tonlo has been able to save in this opening stint. Understandably, the assumption would be less than him, given the fact that Tonlo has been the lead car. But when he makes mistakes like that, going deep into turn 13 and 14, well, Knotavin right now will see that gap open up, and he comes into the pits immediately. So he decides to go for one gasp at that, and now by making his way in, he's had his chance. Tonlo will carry on here, and I suspect we'll see a reaction from Tonlo at the end of this lap. Although intriguingly, Knotavin coming in just with over half the race remaining, so therefore it does seem as though he's going for the undercut strategy. As meanwhile, DC, Beaver, niCKaLaToR, they're all queuing up behind each other here. DC has really slipped off the pace now as he makes his way on through, but as he does so, coming through, they all come into pit lane. Who does not? niCKaLaToR does not, so therefore Nick Squared change strategy. Oh, there's a big lock up at the break there from Beaver, getting very close to the back of DC on pit lane entry there, and DC was playing it safe. Meanwhile, Beaver thought they could break a lot later than that. Well, thankfully, it didn't clip him on the rear, as otherwise it would have been absolute carnage in the pit lane. But as they coming in, we can see there Knotavin still being serviced, in fact already completing his service, and well, the car was not on the jacks there, so he's staying on the same set of tyres all the way to the finish here as Knotavin. Well, the fuel has definitely gone in, and well, with that pit stop complete now, onwards he goes then, all the way to the very end here. But let's wait and see what he's going to be able to do. But meanwhile, Tonlo, your leader, carrying his way on around at the moment. And, well, definitely looking to set the 535 driver here for what could be a huge result. His first win of the season at this rate, but he's just got to make sure he doesn't make mistakes. Meanwhile, DC and Beaver, they do swap around. Beaver, in the end, was able to save some fuel, and therefore he will emerge. He was able to save those about 3 seconds worth of fuel in the pit lane. And, well, as they come on down, right now, Biker Pilot stays on out, so he will split the pair of them. Biker Pilot will be close to Beaver coming in towards turn 1, but not close enough, I think, to get ahead. Albeit, you've got to understand, of course, these drivers will understand the fact that Biker Pilot is in a different race at this point, given he has not pitted as of yet. Meanwhile, Beaver and DC have, so therefore they will probably not expect him to be too aggressive towards them, because he'll gain nothing really at this point, and his teammates as well. Well, of none other than Omega is up the road and yet to pit, so therefore there's no real gain in fighting with them, unless of course Omega was in a strategic fight with what would be Beaver and DC, but he's not in this case. niCKaLaToR meanwhile has got Cat Daddy behind. Now, of course, that four-way fight for third place is split in half with the fact 2 drivers came into the pits on the previous lap. Now, on the end of lap number 26, they stay out still. Both drivers carry on. Tonlo does the same as well. So that gives us an idea that we probably do have around a 10 to 15-minute pit window in which the fuel tanks are able to go either side of the midpoint of the race. Of course, there is no defined pit window for this event, nor is there for any of the races here in Season 12 of the LMP2 series of the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series. But the pit window we talk about really is if you want to turn this into a one-stop, how early can you pit before the halfway point of the race, and how late after it can you pit in order to guarantee you will be able to put the right amount of fuel in the car, or you can lift and coast to make up a deficit. And what it seems to be is around 40 minutes into the race you could do it, and we suspect around 55 to 50 minutes into the race you'll be able to do it as well. So it gives us around a 15-minute pit window to play with as Omega decides to make his way into the pit lane. We've also had a bit of drama for DC recently. He's had something go very wrong, we believe, going into the stadium sections. He's lost out massively to Beaver and Biker Pilot. He's 8 seconds behind, so we'll get a replay of that when we can. But Omega's coming in, so DC will take that place back. But right now, DC may have just cost himself all the time he needed to have a chance of finishing third today. He may have even cost himself a shot at top 5. As we do see the run for the S's there of niCKaLaToR and Cat Daddy. Omega in the pits here. So right now, these two will still carry on. Tonlo is into the pit lane as well. So he heads on down, and he's decided to split this race exactly in half here. He's going to go equidistant, and this is going to be the pit stop that sees him either come out ahead of Knotavin or behind him, or perhaps even side by side with him. But meanwhile, niCKaLaToR side by side with Cat Daddy squeezing up the inside. Too wide with the stadium they go. niCKaLaToR defending fairly there. Cat Daddy was invited to attack, and niCKaLaToR said to him, well, you can go up the inside for turn 13, but I promise you, you're going to be on the outside for 14 and 15. And Cat Daddy carries on. Meanwhile, niCKaLaToR into the pit lane now. He doesn't want to fight anymore. He's worried about losing more time here to the 69 car. Cat Daddy, the man who started third, of course, had that early mistake. Sends him all the way down the order. This is a really good recovery drive so far. Can he potentially leapfrog his way into third at this rate in the pit stops? As Tonlo has been serviced. Here he comes now. Where is Knotavin? I think that's Knotavin in the rear of the picture, but the gap, look at it. As Knotavin makes his way on down, right now, Tonlo has gained massively here. Now, what we're hearing in our ear right now is that Knotavin actually missed his pit box initially when he came into pit lane, so they had to move the car, tries to get it into the right position for the fuel gun, and that explains why Tonlo in the end right now is 2 seconds ahead. We thought it would be the other way round, given how close Knotavin was to the fact he was able to fuel save in the opening stint, but not quite so. niCKaLaToR making his way around as we do look to the blimp camera. Where is Beaver? Where's he going to be? The answer is he's coming across that line now. There is Beaver. And he is going to get ahead of niCKaLaToR just about. And Pancake's still ahead of them. But that means that right now Beaver has leapt his way into third. Albeit on the assumption that he's not beaten in the pit lane by Cat Daddy. He is the last question mark. Meanwhile, Tonlo has been caught up to by Knotavin immediately. I think Tonlo's had a bit of an error coming down to turn before he's gone deep. And what was a comfortable 2-second gap is now only 2 tenths. It's all kicking off here, and Knotavin, of course, has got much warmer tyres at this point. He's had the chance to warm those tyres up. Tonlo right now, he's got to try and heat those tyres up as much as possible, as quickly as he can. But, of course, that is a contradiction of the fact you don't want to overheat them too quickly, because otherwise you lose all the tyre life you can gain. But Tonlo right now, under huge pressure. Here comes Knotavin looking up the inside. Not quite there. He just stays behind. Pancake's watches on behind, but knowing because he has yet to pit, he's not going to get involved in this. And Knotavin looking back to the inside there. niCKaLaToR in the pit lane. He's just leaving it now to look out my Conte booth window. He will re-emerge in 10th place very shortly. But oh, goodness me, Knotavin right now, he's looking so threatening here as they make the way on out through turn 16 to 17. And the niCKaLaToR driver here 2.5 tenths behind. Well, at this point, with no expectation of any more strategy, he can absolutely go for it now as they make the way on down. We've had an instant meanwhile for niCKaLaToR off camera. We will get a replay of that when we can, but Tonlo goes defensive here. And right now, Knotavin is going to have the overspeed, but it's going to be side by side all the way into the braking zone for 1. Will it be side by side by the exit of 3? Here we go then. And Knotavin trying to go all the way around. This is the lead of the race. On the outside to inside. Tonlo trying to hold it there. He's still there. 2 wide on exit, and in the end, Tonlo says no, but Knotavin says yes, and he's got the traction on the cord. He's going to be ahead, takes the grass slightly to give himself the inside line down towards turn number 4. Knotavin ahead now. Will Tonlo go back on the inside here under braking? He decides not to. He's going to try and ride in the toe there, the niCKaLaToR driver. Remember, of course, Tonlo was the man who started on pole. He did beat Knotavin to pole position by the best part of 1600ths, so it was not as though he wasn't able to get the job done. But right now, it does seem as though here Knotavin in the race has just once again been able to turn the switch on. Much like at Mosport, where it didn't go right in qualifying, but it's definitely coming right in the race. But don't count Tonlo out yet, because if he can stay close, he's now going to go from being the hunted to the hunter here. How comfortable does he feel? No, it's not good! He doesn't feel good at all as he loses it there into turn number 10. The rear of the car comes completely loose on Tonlo, and what was looking to be a gold opportunity for his first win of the season, it's all gone round and down the order as quick as that. The only upside is he does have a very comfortable gap to Beaver, the third place man on the road right now. Cat Daddy, meanwhile, still leading this race. He's going to add a few laps later to his season. He's yet to pit, and the same for Pancakes there. So the two of them are both deciding to stay out at the moment. Now, how long can they go? And, of course, they will have a much shorter final stint of the day. But this race has really much come alive as a result of strategy. And right now, the only big question mark we do have is where will Cat Daddy fit in? Because he's going to take that fuel tank as far as he can. I think the game plan here for the number 69 driver is just to simply give himself the happiest final stint. Given what happened at the start and the mistake he made, he wants to turn that second stint into a sprint race rather than a more strategic stint, and to do that, where he can spend the best part of 50 minutes to almost an hour out there on the first stint. Of course, the tyres will be screaming they want a break. The car will also be saying, why don't we take a rest? But right now, well, you can understand this man is definitely playing things right. As meanwhile, into pit lane, after what's been an extended opening stint, here is Biker Pilot coming in from 6th place, and well, we suspect he will be relegated behind DC and Omega at some point, but meanwhile, he should still be ahead of Garlic Dog, and whilst he makes his pit stop, well, we are just waiting to see where Cat Daddy and Pancakes coming in before we do cut back to some of the big moments as the pit stops got underway. And well, we'll tell you about those very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. Goodness me, we've had some huge moments as a result of the pit stops, and it has completely turned things upside down and around. And well, as we do see Cat Daddy, our leader right now, it's so great to see him out there in terms of recovering the drive. And indeed, many drivers at that point, after a mistake on the opening couple laps, they'd think it is all over. But this man, he never gives up, and that's what we love about him as he comes out to turn 16 and goes another lap here. So he thinks the fuel tank can go even longer. And well, I think I'll agree with him on that one. As meanwhile, coming up the pit lane, that is going to be none other than Biker Pilot here. He is going to go a lap down, potentially in a brief moment, albeit he will unlap himself, of course, when Cat Daddy does come in for his pit stop. So therefore, right now, he won't be too upset about that, although the gap to Omega is 13 seconds, so he's got a bit of work to do there if he wants to try and take 7th place off his teammate. New fastest lap of the race, a 38.553, at least for the second stint. Knotavin has just gone purple of everybody. So right now, the number 28 driver here and pumping out the laps, and with the mistake for Tonlo, but the gap now is 12.5 seconds. It's almost 13 seconds at this point, so Knotavin wants to try and put this race to bed as quickly as he can. Tonlo, meanwhile, will we see a response here from the man who's definitely put some scorch marks across his tyres with that big slide at turn number 10? Indeed, a very unfortunate one. They're trying to battle back, but as soon as he fell into the dirty air, that's what Knotavin was struggling with for the whole opening 25 minutes of this race, was staying that close with the S's, and Sonny Tonlo seeing exactly what had happened there as he fell into the trap, which was trying to push hard to come back on tyres that were not properly heated up, and then Sonny the dirty air just taking away some of the downforce he critically needed over that rear end coming in towards turns 10 and 11. Always a tricky pair of corners, given the fact you go onto the brakes briefly on entry there, and well, the rear of the car just not settling down in time. Rolling his way around right now. He's got plenty of time to see whether he can salvage the win out of this one, or otherwise will it be another second place? Indeed, last time he was second at our previous round at Mosport, and will be another second place today. And he has pushed this man hard, no doubt about it. Knotavin has definitely started to be pushed the distance in rounds 4 and 5 here today, especially so. But right now, when it comes to the complete package, it does seem as though the niCKaLaToR driver really is the complete package compared to his rivals, and that is what his key is. He just seems to have a little bit of everything, and when he is lacking in one department, he can make up for it in other departments. But then again, we have still got just over half an hour racing to go. Let's not count this over yet. Anything can happen before the finish line, and in motorsport, it normally does. And right now, we are still waiting for the impending pit stop of this man, Cat Daddy, whose pace, to be fair to him, what to say, this is some very consistent pace from our number 69 driver. His pace is effectively matching with the likes of Beaver, DC, Omega, and Biker Pilot. So right now, you would imagine when he does come into the pits, he may actually come out in third place here, because the only driver he's really in competition with now is Beaver for that final podium spot. And if he does pull this off, well, it would be a return to the podium since the Hockenheimring back in round number 3. So it's going to all come down to strategy and then just keeping it together for the final few minutes of the race. He does cut the curb there at turn number 8, and in doing so, well, I think he picks up an instant point there, but I think he's got away with the slowdown that time around. But he won't keep making that mistake there, although you can understand he's pushing right now in order to make sure that he's going to guarantee himself that third place spot when he does go onto his second stint. We're still waiting for when exactly he is going to make his way into the pit lane. We're going through the stadium sequence here, and nothing untoward, although the car wobbling a little bit there coming off the curb. I suspect that might be tyre life now starting to bite. And well, goes another lap here. He's going to try and go the full hour by the looks of things before he does come in. Unless somehow he's magically been able to find what is an extra fuel tank in the car. Indeed, right now, I do know about, of course, the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe and the wonderful Narnia experience, but I don't think there he's got a Narnia fuel tank in that car, unless he's found some magic, although the scrutineers will be taking a look at that car afterwards and thinking, how exactly did he get it done? Pancake's doing the same, to be fair. He stays out another lap. So the 481 try here going the full distance, and to be fair, why would you do this, if you maybe ask at this point? Is it a source of frustration or essentially a game of what is wasting time? Not necessarily, no, because the thing is, if you stay out and towards the front, there's always the feel-good factor, at least for a couple of laps, the fact you are in a podium spot for Pancakes, or you are leading laps of the race if you are Cat Daddy. But also secondly, and perhaps more importantly, is also the fact that by staying out there, you are keeping the momentum going. Now, it sounds a bit weird, because surely the undercut's the better strategy, because you naturally gain time by coming out on a fresher set of tyres, and indeed, you normally come out a clear track. Yes and no, because remember, whilst these cars do have tyre warmers, the tyres will never be as warm. Hold up a second. Who's that gone straight on there? We're trying to see who that was, because somebody's just got it very wrong. That's Biker Pilot going off the road and coming back on. So as he does so, well, he's gone a lap down. He's going to release a place there to Garlic Dog. So Garlic Dog comes on through. And I think also respecting the blue flags there for Tonlo, who has made his way around in fourth place. But an error from Biker Pilot will get a replay of that in short order. But what we were trying to say is the fact, remember, whilst these cars do get tyre warmers, the tyres will come out of those warmers at approximately what will be around 50 degrees centigrade. Unfortunately, I don't have the numbers in my head for the Fahrenheit, but the key point being they're not as warm as they would be when they're actually raced well and hard. So therefore, you have to get those tyres up to temperature. That is the hard part on your outlap. You need to warm the tyres up, or the ones that you've got on the car, if you decide not to change, you need to warm them back up because they lose temperature in the pit lane. For every second you spend static in the pits, you lose 1 Fahrenheit of temperature normally. That's an approximation. So therefore, you'll switch the tyres back on. So sometimes it's actually better to stay out there as long as possible because you are keeping those tyres warm. And then, of course, you have the shortest stint. You have the lightest car as well at the very end. That's why Cat Daddy and Pancakes finally do both come in. And as they do so, there is Pancakes heading down pit row. So Knotavin retakes the lead of this race. And Tonlo right now, 12 seconds behind. Well, no, right now, that second place seems to be guaranteed. But the chase of the win may just be over. But who's going to be third? Here is Beaver making his way onwards. We look to the blimp camera. And as he powers his way along, Cat Daddy's leaving the pit lane. He's right towards the end of the pit lane. So he's come off the limiter nice and early there. And as he makes way onwards, Beaver is getting closer and closer. It's going to be close. I think Beaver here is going to be behind. He picks up the toe. He knows what's happening. He goes to pit line. And as they make the way towards the braking zone here, well, Beaver's got the overspeed and goes the inside, cuts his way around Cat Daddy, so he does take third place back. But look at how much the number 69 driver has caught up on this recovery drive right now. He's within half a second for the third place spot. He's almost back to where he started. And, well, the pace he's got at the moment, you would think in theory he will put on a challenge here for third place to the very end of the race. With 34 minutes left, plus a final lap, Cat Daddy right now on the overcut strategy, or going long as it used to be known, is right now within the position to attack the podium here. Can Beaver hold on to make it back-to-back third places? Or Cat Daddy return to the podium since round number 3? Well, that's what we're going to see. But as they get themselves settled down now and all the pit stops are complete, we need to take a look back at some of the big moments from in the run through the pit stop window, including firstly this big moment for DC. So this was all the way back on lap number 26 as the pit stops really started to get underway. And at the time he had pitted, lost it there through 12 into 13. Took a bit too much curb on entry. And the rear of the car just slid loose there into the hairpin. And that was a mistake that's cost him a lot of time and really put him out of the fight for what has been a chance at a top 5. Meanwhile, what exactly went wrong after that? Well, we had this big moment for Cat Daddy versus niCKaLaToR, of course. This was their battle for on lap 27. And this was Cat Daddy all over the back of niCKaLaToR. And then look to the inside in towards turn 13, but niCKaLaToR is set up to defend outside to inside. So a lovely bit of defensive work there from the Nick Square driver and just held on for that moment. And then did have, of course, what was this moment for none other than niCKaLaToR after his pit stop. He went into the pits then, and then niCKaLaToR after coming out of the pits, well, something went very, very wrong. He did have Biker Pilot right behind him at the time, and what went wrong was the rear of the car let go, and it hit the barrier there, and he had to tow to the pits as a result. Oh, goodness me, a nightmare moment for niCKaLaToR, and that's why he's out of the hunt for a top 5 finish today. And then, of course, we had this big bit of drama for Tonlo. And it's really been the moment that separated the two leaders. Had the car come loose in there, coming out of turn number 9 in towards 10. And Tonlo went very sideways after being passed by Knotavin in that brilliant battle. And it all went around on him. We also had this for Biker Pilot on lap number 32. And it's a big error for Biker Pilot as he came on down into the braking zone for turn number 4. And I suspect a bit of a lock-up here. Yes, it was a rear left lock-up, and in fact a further lock-up on the front tyre, the front left tyre, and then just let the car roll to the grass there and took its time bringing its way back onto the road. Well, that's the stories, ladies and gentlemen, and it's back to your live racing action we come. And so, with not too many more minutes of this race still to be done, we do see right now a few more fights on the horizon, perhaps, particularly in the fight for third place between Beaver and Cat Daddy, albeit, hold up a second, Cat Daddy's fallen a long way back. He's had a mistake somewhere, and that has happened whilst we've been in replay mode there. So Cat Daddy has lost out. I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps it's been a spin akin to what we've seen for other drivers earlier on that or through the middle sector. So suddenly that gap has expanded to the best part of 10 seconds, and he's now got 31 minutes to try and close it down. Well, if his pace is to be believed from previous laps, he can close it down, but he's definitely giving himself a bit of a handicap at DC right now. Well, I said only moments ago he was out of the hunt for a top 5, given his mistake. He's far from it. In fact, he's running in 5th place at the moment with all the chop and change of mistakes for other drivers. DC here right on the heels of Cat Daddy. Can he find a way into 4th place here? I think chasing down a podium might be a bit of a long task, given that Beaver's pace is matched him as a minimum, but never say never right now. It only takes one small mistake, and suddenly the fight for the 3rd place spot could reopen as quick as that. So it's going to be some intrigue before this race is done. Indeed, as we get ready to cross the hour mark at this point, a hour mark which many of our drivers will be familiar with, of course. We are starting to head into a bit of unknown territory now for the final 30 minutes, because this is where stamina will definitely be put to the test, and also managing tyres will be a concern. Now, we did see a few drivers have their cars go up on the jacks. We saw a few decide not to have their tyres changed as well. You can go the full 90 minutes on a single set of tyres on these RP217 LMP2 machines. It's not as though after 60 minutes the tyres are completely ruined. You can race them the whole distance, and some drivers do prefer to do it, because the understanding is that whilst you may not have as nice a tyre over the course of 90 minutes, you have a tyre that you are used to, that you've essentially worn down, and you're managing that wear. And that comes back to our point from earlier on, of course, which is the fact that if you do change tyres in the pit lane, you normally only do change 2 at most, as we do see there a step aside for Biker Pilot, who makes his way clear there, takes the runoff area to respect the blue flags. Good away it is, and that's a lock up there for DC, who goes deep at turn number 12, and that's not the mistakes you want to make, as he is chasing after Cat Daddy, and that gap now has doubled from 1 second to 2. Such a small error, but such a big one there, and right now they are struggling out there, some of the drivers, and I think DC really struggling with the tyres at this point as he goes deep. And to our point, which is if you do change the tyres, if you change 2 or changed all of them, although the length of the pit stops here, we are expecting actually drivers could change all 4. You've got to get those tyres warmed back up. You've got to get used to the idea. You suddenly have all this grip, but of course you have a much lighter car on the second stint, given the fact you are wearing the car down now towards the very end. We've seen that we don't need to put the whole fuel tank back in the car, as proven by what was our longest stoppers, or Pancakes and also Cat Daddy. And that means you've got to adjust now to a car that's got loads of grip once the tyres are heated up, but it's a much lighter car, so therefore it gives you overconfidence rather than underconfidence or nervousness with the car. It always is a bit of a guessing game, and that's the unknown zone we're heading into here, and the real fact that right now our drivers going an extra 30 minutes today for a crown jewel race. They've got to be used to the idea that stamina levels got to be kept high, but also they've got to make sure they're willing to go the distance and understand how the car's going to behave for the final half an hour. And Knotavin seems to be very much in a controlled mindset here, which is leader, a 39.072 that time around, with a 10.5 second gap to Tonlo, and was the sun glare there, definitely is heading to JJ Abrams levels of lens flare. Well, meanwhile, Tonlo absolutely still on a mission here on a 38.971, and well, heading on down the straight. He knows right now there's still work to be done here if he wants that first win of the season, but he's got to firstly chisel down a gap. He does so by a 10th that time around, but there's still more time to be found. It's not going to be easy. Beaver is meanwhile 26 seconds behind here, and right now with a 10-second gap over Cat Daddy. Well, the thought process here is that Cat Daddy's made a mistake. We haven't quite caught him. We do apologise for that, but if he can make sure he doesn't make any mistakes of his own, he could in theory afford to lose around about 4 to 5 tenths a lap to be safe to the very end. If we do some mental mathematics, well, lap time of over 1.5 minutes with 28 minutes to go, well, we are expecting around about what would be 12 more laps, including the one they've gone on to, so he would just be about safe there. He can afford to lose half a second a lap, but no more than that. Speaking of which, Cat Daddy on that lap took 600ths off, so that's absolutely fine, but he wants to let that rate of depreciation grow too quickly. DC, meanwhile, still chasing after Cat Daddy, but the gap has grown almost to 3 seconds now after losing another 6 tenths. Whenever it does seem as though Cat Daddy right now has a pace advantage, and DC, I think, has a bit of nervousness in the car after that small error. But again, if you make that error once, the problem is as well, it starts to get into your head. Are you going to make the same error twice? And we've all been there whereby we've made a mistake. And it's one thing that you as a driver need to learn very quickly, which is be aware of your mistakes, but don't think you're going to repeat them. If you start to think you're going to repeat them, you will repeat them. You'll keep doing the same thing over and over, or you become so nervous and sensitive to a certain part of the circuit that in the end you actually don't carry the pace you can through the corner, and you start to essentially psych yourself out of running the race at your pace that you do have. It's all mind games here, and whilst the racing may not be real, the mindset that drivers have to go through and the experience very much will feel real, as we do see DC coming down into that braking zone. The one where he got it wrong last time around, but this time he gets it absolutely right, and that's why he's not letting turn 12 beat him right now. Instead, he's going to conquer that corner, and Pancakes, meanwhile, 12 seconds back. In a bit of a lonely 6th place at the moment. Well, definitely has been one of those races whereby if it weren't for that early mistake, he would be well inside that top 5, enjoying battle. He's got the pace to match the likes of Beaver, Cat Daddy and DC, but unfortunately with the gap that has grown through the error early on, right now he's really forced himself out of contention for a top 5 here today, unless one of his rivals makes a critical mistake. Omega a bit further behind, 30 seconds back here, and the last driver who's on a lead lap, and he does have the best part of a 15-second gap to our race leader of Knotavin, who's coming through the SS sequence at the moment. So Omega may be safe to complete this race on the lead lap. He may just be lapped right towards the very end. It's going to be quite close. And, well, Garlic Dog splitting him from his teammate. And here is Garlic Dog right now. A lap down the 199, and it has been a bit of a challenging day. But, of course, for him, he has had those moments of brilliance. We have seen some great pace from him in the opening 30 minutes, but small mistakes really have cost him a chance of being able to chase the top 5. But, again, I think right now this is a learning experience for him, and he's getting quicker and quicker in this guy. He's also getting more and more consistent. If he can start to add it all together in the second half of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Garlic Dog chasing top 5s, because he has proven to be one of those drivers who is getting more and more comfortable with the car, and that's a big factor. Of course, doing these 90-minute races, when it's a situation such as this, you may be sat there thinking right now, why are these drivers still out there? They're a lap down. Why don't they retire the car? They can't gain any more places. Well, you never know what happens, of course, first in regards to retirements. Should somebody suddenly have a technical failure or alternatively make a big error, you can gain a place and gain some more points. But also, it's the fact that no matter how much your mind tells you you've got nobody to race with right now, you're racing with yourself, essentially. And the idea is every bit of track time you get, you can find another 10th. You can learn something. Even the very best drivers, they won't retire from a race when they're further down. They will stay out there and complete the whole race distance normally, because they'll know that every lap they do, they can discover something new, and they can even experiment. Sometimes mistakes will happen again. It's all part of that experience that makes you an even quicker driver. niCKaLaToR, meanwhile, after going backwards into the barrier, coming in towards the SS sequence a few laps ago. Well, right now he's ninth, but he's chasing Garlic Dog down quite quickly. That last lap is 2 seconds quicker, so at this point it might be a situation by the end of this lap he's going to be all over the back of the 199, going onto that start-finish straight. But as we do see the Trollman livery machine rolling its way on through, well, right now coming in towards turn number 6 he goes. Right now, Biker Pilot being the best part of a minute behind. He's got no pressure behind. He's only got pressure to push forward for those in front. But as we do leave him for a brief moment, we do look to Beaver. There's his teammate. And his teammate right now getting ready to lap him gradually, albeit Beaver's pace only wears a couple attempts quicker lap to lap at the moment. And right now for Beaver, it's all about making sure he manages the time and does not let Cat Daddy get too close. Gap has come down by 6 attempts compared to the previous lap. So Cat Daddy is finding the time, but right now that will not be enough. He needs to find at least 8 attempts a lap on average if he wants to get the job done, although that's a lot easier said than done, understandably. But that's the time we're dealing with here, and there is Cat Daddy, and you'll see DC very briefly appear in the shot. There he comes in the rear of the picture, and Cat Daddy right now still trying to churn the time down. Has set a personal best in the previous final sector. He is picking up the pace in the very latter end of the lap. He's still got a bit more time to find out there, particularly his second sector is where Beaver is the quicker of the two drivers, and it's not by small margins either. It is normally by a couple of attempts that he's quicker, so it does sway back and forth. Beaver that time around a 39.76, Cat Daddy a 38.82. That is what he needs. If he can keep up this pace, he will catch Beaver right towards the end of the final 5 minutes. He will be there to attack as he does extend his gap to DC by a further 8 attempts. The Cat Daddy is not out of this yet. niCKaLaToR, meanwhile, still chasing down Garlic Dog in front of him. This is the closest battle on circuit at the moment as we ride on board the dashboard here of your number 5. And the next square driver right now, working his way from left into right here. And you see Cat Daddy's car twitching as it makes its way between the apexes. And that twitchiness, a sign, of course, of the fact that car not quite as settled as he would like it to be. But as niCKaLaToR has to force the car coming out of turn number 6, the rear taking some time to grip up and get the traction. In towards the left into right here, turns at 7 and 8. You can see in that dirty air now, this will start to compromise his run. Turns in nice and early there for turn number 9. That's what you can do as well in the dirty air. You can either burn the speed earlier by braking, or you turn it in earlier, essentially, in order to get the car. It will naturally understeer deeper into the corner because of the dirty air, so by turning in earlier, the car is going to slide into its normal racing line. That's the full process. As meanwhile, new fastest lap of the race for Tonlo, a 38.462. So he's shown he's still got some pace out there. And, well, Nick Squared on the back of Garlic Dog as he makes way on through, using all the runoff area there to his advantage. Gap 6 attempts as he now heads onto the start finish straight. And this is the gap he wants, because now in the draft we will see who's got the car with more downforce on it, and also just how powerful the tow is going to be. 10th gained already, and now further way down the straight. Then he's going to get to halfway here. Another half a 10th gained. I think niCKaLaToR's running a lot more rear wing compared to Garlic Dog's car. He's not really gaining as they get down to that braking zone. albeit therefore he'll have to do this in the corners instead, which is where his car seems to be set up for, and particularly when Garlic goes that deep at turn number 1, that's going to bring him so much closer here. Will he have a run here in towards turn number 4? We'll be thinking about it. 2.5 tenths is the gap as he builds up the speed, but I think here it's going to be too far back unless he goes for a send onto the inside. Looks out there. Is he going to go all in? Yes, he is. Tries to run it on the brakes here, but in the end, not close enough. Garlic Dog does go a little bit deep there in reaction, so niCKaLaToR still getting in the mind of his rival, and now coming out of turn 5 in towards 6. Onto the brakes. Will he find a way in? The answer is no. He's going to wait just that little bit longer, but you can see now he's starting to understand the fact that he's got a car that's not as quick on the straights by comparison. So therefore, once he does gain in the draft, he's actually got to get this done in the corners and the braking zones. So therefore, he's got to do it the hard way, which is he's got to maximise corner speed, which is not easy when you've got a wall of dirty air in front of you. But when a mistake like that is made by Garlic Dog, this gets a little bit easier. Now, surely he's going to be thinking about it in towards turn number 12. He's immediately going to be on the inside there to the outside. And well, Garlic Dog there does not fight it. He lets it go, realising that place was lost before the braking zone, and in the end he would be braking into a very dusty part of the circuit, and he'd only be hurting his car and tyres even more. So instead, we decide to do is tuck him behind niCKaLaToR and see if he can learn from him a little bit and just follow him around probably the rest of the lap and going on to the next one. As a big slide there coming out turn 16, way too much apex curb, and the place will be made there. niCKaLaToR back into 8th place now. His next target is going to be Omega, but when the gap to Omega is the best part of 42 seconds, it may be a bit of an uphill battle, which he will not be able to climb too well in the time remaining. But meanwhile, back to your leader. And Knotavin right now trying to put a hill in the way between himself and Tonlo. Tonlo is 7 seconds behind and gradually closing little by little. But at this point, Knotavin can afford to let the time go. So long as he doesn't lose more than half to 6 tenths of a second a lap, he is going to be okay. Beyond that, he will be at risk of losing out in the last couple of laps, particularly if he makes a mistake or two. Although I think Knotavin here definitely driving to a predetermined pace now, as Tonlo definitely pushing on. And that's the thing. We know Tonlo is an incredibly quick driver when he's got clear track in front of him. We saw that, of course, in qualifying, and we have seen it several times in the second stint of the race after his error. The only problem is now he is trying to chase down time that he's lost, and also he's chasing against tyre life. That slide earlier will not have been nice to his tyres. It will have overheated them. He will have lost a couple % of tyre life compared to where the tyres will want to be in terms of millimetre tread depth, and that's why he's pushing so hard here. And when you have to push like this, well, mentally you cannot push all the race. You cannot drive at 100% over the entire race distance. You do have to turn yourself down every so often, otherwise you will burn yourself out of the race essentially. And right now he is pushing, and that is another half a tenth gained as Knotavin responds there for a lap. So I think Knotavin right now just jangling the keys in front of him right now to that lead, and in the end Tonlo is trying to chase after him, but every time he does put in a good lap, Knotavin responds we should say, and matches him for the next lap and simply says you're going to push a little bit harder than that. And that's the thing now, Tonlo really having to give it everything here and then go into a place he doesn't want to go, and that is trying to go to 110% or more, and that's a very uncomfortable place to be. But meanwhile, for Beaver, is it comfort here in 3rd place because of 40.180 to a 40.013 for Cat Daddy? Yes, it does seem to be a little bit more comfortable. You can see the two of them in the camera shot there, albeit separated by the car of Garlic Dog, who Beaver has now put a lap on. And Cat Daddy will do so in due course. But Garlic Dog at this point, knowing right now he is between a rock and a hard place and he won't want to interfere with it. But Cat Daddy does seem to be starting to come to the end of the pace that he's got available to him. Albeit he did go very long. He went 33 laps before he pitted, much like Pancakes did. But the problem he's got at this point is the fact that as he makes his way on down and around is, well, he's got a very short final stint compared to most, but has he got the tyre life to go with it? It was a quick pit stop as well, not the quickest out there. Beaver was 3 seconds quicker in the pit lane by comparison, but Cat Daddy, to be fair, to use a lot of fuel to get himself back into the fight for the podium after his second lap spin. So you can understand why he's probably feeling as though right now this car definitely has seen better days. But meanwhile, speaking of seeing better days, that's his fastest lap of this second stint of the race. Knotavin, a 38.216, a very impressive lap. And, well, Tonlo responds with 38.457, but Knotavin opens that gap back up by 2 tenths. So that goes to show you here the niCKaLaToR drive definitely holding the control over the lead of this race as Tonlo tries to chase him down. I'm pretty thinking to himself, for everything I do, how is he able to go even quicker? And, well, that's a question and not even the devil himself will know. I think Knotavin got the devil of the detail, and Tonlo right now has come close today, but unfortunately he's been beaten in the end on track and with a small mistake. And then again, 16 minutes still to go. anything can happen at this point. It only takes one error, and this battle for the lead could be blown wide open, or it could become incredibly tight. Meanwhile, come back to Cat Daddy as he takes the toe there off his teammate a Garlic Dog. He puts a lap on. He'll be grateful for that slipstream. That will help him out a little bit. But Beaver there at 39.46, Cat Daddy at 39.50. So Beaver is now responding. That gap has come down enough to the point that the niCKaLaToR driver is now saying, essentially, well, if you're going to come after me, you're going to have to push a little bit harder than that. And the playing race cars driver here, working with his teammate to gain a bit of time on the straight, but understand me, Cat Daddy at this point now has got all the work ahead of him if he wants to make this magic happen. This is going to be far from easy, and, well, the only thing he can do at this point is get his head down, continue to pump out those laps, and hope that he's got the more consistent pace, and his car's got the stamina by comparison. But Beaver is definitely showing right now that he's turned the wick down previously, and now he's turning it back up. And that's why he's the man who finished third. He's finished third twice this season. He's going to make it a third first place finish at this point. Indeed, that has been his only trips to the podium. He's not finished second or taken a win so far. He'll hope one day he can ascend a step at least, but right now he definitely seems to be glued to that third place. As Cat Daddy will try to shake him off of it after missing out on the podium last time out. We will see. DC, meanwhile, running in fifth. Here he is, losing the pace, those two. And meanwhile, 10 seconds ahead of Pancakes. And Pancakes is absolutely flying right now. And, well, you could definitely say it's a bit of a flying saucer here. Indeed, as he rolls his way through. He does so, as niCKaLaToR has just found his way forward as well, a little bit more behind in terms of pace. But Pancake's the man to watch at the moment. 39.62 that previous lap. That was 2 seconds quicker than DC, albeit not as quick as Cat Daddy or Beaver by comparison. But he's still chasing down the top 5 here and could put some distant pressure on, albeit he's going to find a lot more time before this race is said and done. We are on lap number 46, and I suspect we are going to go approximately 59 laps at this point, based on the timing. Again, my mental mathematics not too great right now, but to be fair, in fact, we're going to get nowhere near 59 laps. I suspect we're going to be pushing to the best part of around about 53 laps here by the time we've got remaining. Indeed, it's going to be cutting close between 50 and 54 laps. That might also be a fault there. Has everyone taken enough fuel to do the final lap? Should we sneak an extra lap in if it is going to be close? Of course, the fuel calculators, they'll all be out. Our drivers have done their simulation runs. Of course, you can't quite simulate what's going to happen on race day in terms of who's got the pace, how exactly is it deployed, and how long is the race leader going to keep pumping out those laps. As Pancake's that time around of 39.56 to DC's 41.13. So another 1.6 seconds gained there from Pancakes. So the gap now down to 9 seconds here. He is chiseling it away. Meanwhile, speaking of another gap that's being chiseled on down, Beaver and Cat Daddy, they're almost sharing the same screen state now. They can see them. And with Beaver coming up behind his teammate niCKaLaToR, and he'll be hoping that his teammate here is going to give him a draft down the start-finish straight to help him out a little bit and help keep that gap nice and open. So make their way through the stadium section, because right now Cat Daddy is becoming an increasing appearance in the camera shot. And well, that's not good news if you're cheering on the niCKaLaToR team, because right now Beaver will know that for all the pace he's hurrying and turrying with, as he does set a 39.649, Cat Daddy meanwhile a 39.08. That is another 5.5 temps stripped out here. He's going to be in attacking distance on the final lap at this rate. It's going to be close, but right now Beaver does have the toe of niCKaLaToR in front of him. niCKaLaToR steps aside there and gives up what is a bit of his lap in order to help his teammate out, and more understandably he'll probably try not to do the same there for what will be Cat Daddy, albeit if he does end up doing it, it is going to just happen an actual will, but you're hoping that he doesn't give up the toe there to what we Cat Daddy as well to equalise the benefit. If anything, he'll want to be caught at probably the worst place on the circuit, not to be a nuisance, but if he was to be caught, say, through the S's, for example, we can't just simply step aside there because it is a series of corners and it'd be dangerous to do so. So instead, he might end up being a little bit of a roadblock, if you will, by default, and in the end, he'll move aside and let what we Cat Daddy go as soon as he can on the stretch towards turn number 12. That's a fault as well. It can be about where you get caught up to when it comes to cars that are going a lap down, and exactly how it works out in the favour of one driver but works against another. But meanwhile, fastest lap of the race, a 38.088 from Tonlo there, a monster lap, and right now he's not out this yet. He's giving it another roar, is our number 535 driver, and well, going down in towards turn number 1, understanding the BDS racing driver here is trying to prove a point right now, which is this should have been his win, as meanwhile, oh, there's smoke up. Who's that getting it wrong? That's Omega. Omega's had a spin coming out of turn number 3. Car parked up there by the side of the road, gets it going once again there, but off track, so a bit of drama, and well, we haven't had any mistakes in drives. They've all been very good in the remaining 30 minutes of the race, but one has fallen, and that is going to be Omega. They're making an error, and we'll get a replay of that when we can. That's definitely going to see his race for a lap down there, and one innocent mistake. But Tonlo right now, well, absolutely pushing onwards, and well, showing to Knotavin that if he's not going to be taking the win, he is going to be the fastest man here today. But Knotavin, meanwhile, also trying to cook up a better lap of his own as well. The two of them swapping lap time still, and these cars getting quicker and quicker. And it goes to show you the fact that whether they're on fresh tyres or old tyres, there's still plenty of pace to be tapped into with these racing machines. But meanwhile, Beaver and Cat Daddy, that gap now, 3 seconds. Cat Daddy on that last lap, a whole second taken out of Beaver. Well, it could be a couple of laps to go that we see this battle come to fruition rather than just the final lap here, because Cat Daddy right now is absolutely hurrying along here. The Playing Racing Cars driver who we ride on board with. Well, first car he's got to get past is niCKaLaToR, who is the lap down car there, so he'll be expecting those blue flags to wave when he gets within a second of him, albeit right now I do believe he's around about 2 seconds behind, so he's still got a bit of time to go, albeit he'll be thinking, okay, where am I going to approach him? Can I get to him by the start-finish straight? Can I catch him on the exit of turn number 3? If he can do either of those, he's going to gain time. If he catches him anywhere else, he's going to lose time, theoretically, or not gain anything at all. Well, a lovely run through the S's there. He's now in a second as he gets ready to come in towards what will be turn number 12, around 1.2 seconds at that point. Under braking, very aggressive under braking, and Cat Daddy there just experiencing the front end washing out slightly. That's the dirty air by getting so close to niCKaLaToR as they come through the stadium sequence here, where he's caught up to niCKaLaToR just at the right time. As going through turn 16 into 17, this is where he will gain a little bit on corner exit. Fighting with understeer on corner exit. That's going to cost him time initially, and niCKaLaToR immediately backs off there. He knows what's up. He's not going to give the straight line speed advantage to Cat Daddy. He's going to make him work for it there. A little bit of teamwork in the favour of Beaver. Nothing unfair about that, of course. That's entirely legal, and Cat Daddy was expecting that, I would expect. And right now, well, that gap's still 2.4 seconds, even with the slides. And Beaver there, 39.19, but a half-second gain by Cat Daddy. I have to imagine how much time would have been gained there if Cat Daddy had not caught up to niCKaLaToR as early as that. Would he have lost out? Well, the best part of 3 attempts there, at least, I suspect so. So right now, Beaver is under threat here with only 9 minutes to go. And as they get ready to do battle, well, we very briefly, ladies and gentlemen, take a trip back in time to take a look at what exactly happened to Yomega. So this was Yomega making his way through turns 2 and 3, coming through that right hand. I got it right on the apex, but went wide then, dipped the left-hand side tyres onto the runoff area. There's no grip out there, and as a result, the car going spinning around, and in a puff of smoke, he saw his race go from good to bad to slightly worse as we come back to your live racing. And of course, a huge thank you to Autódromo and his brilliant software for enabling us to be able to bring you replays of race events in amongst an iRacing replay file. That's how we're able to do these post-round broadcasts as if they were live. So huge thank you to him. As meanwhile, right now, we've got to give a big thank you here to Beaver and Cat Daddy, because they are keeping this battle for third place interesting all the way to the very end. Of course, that's not to say this race has become boring. It's become one of those races whereby we are seeing drivers equal on pace, but strategy and mistakes have been the difference. It's the same for Knotavin and Tonlo. Here is your leader, and then here is your second place man. Right now, they are literally trading lap times, and Tonlo, with that 38.088 on the previous lap, absolutely delivering a monster fastest lap of the race. It shows the spirit's still there. But meanwhile, Beaver and Cat Daddy, well, Beaver that time around a 39.12, Cat Daddy a 38.97. So Beaver is responding, and Cat Daddy's having to cool the tyres down a little bit, given how hard he's pushed. He needs to get within 2 seconds. If he can get within 2 seconds onto that start-finish straight, he will gain that distance out. It will start off helping him with a 10th or 2 a lap. But, of course, what it will mean is suddenly he will be harder to shake off for Beaver, and that's what Beaver's worried about here. The gap now down to 2.2. We're keeping an eagle eye on it, because as soon as it gets below 2 seconds, particularly towards the end of the lap, that could really open up what's happening as Beaver there hopping his way over the apex curve at turn number 4, taking it quite high in fact, and that I suspect may be just a sign of some nerves creeping in. That will be considered an off track as well. But as they come down towards turn at number 7, I suspect these drivers have got plenty of instant points still to play with. They've had a relatively instant-free race. I wouldn't be surprised if out of what is the 20 or so that are allowed, if my memory serves me correctly, that they might be running on around about 10 or 11 used up so far. So they have got some options out there, and also they have got the window if there does happen to be a bit of contact between the two cars, because we never want to see a battle which ends up with a tap between two cars, ending with one of them picking up a drive-through. That's always a heartbreaker, and with a bit of a deal-breaker as well. But gap now, 1.8 seconds. That middle sector for Cat Daddy, one of his best middle sectors in the second half of this race. And right now, the 69 driver here, definitely an attacking distance. As Biker Pilot has made his way into the pit lane, I suspect that might be for a second and final stop, or is it for a drive-through? We're keeping an eye out there. But also on our cameras there, we're looking at your lead battle for what is third place. And right now, Cat Daddy, he is caught up. He's in 1.7 seconds, and now he will very gradually gain on Beaver, or will he? In fact, Beaver is gained on the straight there. Well, that could be a sign of setup between the two cars at the moment. So Beaver might be quick on the straights by default here. Perhaps they've taken a similar approach to what they saw at Mosport for niCKaLaToR's car. And the fact that in the end just wanting to be able to make sure they've got the straight line speed to be safe. So Cat Daddy's going to do it all in the corners. And what we've seen here today, that having to do all the work in the corners is not easy. It is much harder than having a car that's quicker on the straights by comparison. When the number 10's putting away from the number 69 on the straights despite the toe, that is definitely showing you something at that long distance. If he gets within a second, it won't be as notable. In fact, we will start to see the Plain Racing Car's car get a bit closer, but right now Beaver definitely has got the car that will be safer as the lead car in the pair rather than be the more nervous car. But rolling the way in towards what will be the S's sequence. 5 minutes left on the clock here. Your overall leaders, Knotavin and Tonlo, 5.1 seconds of the gap. It is coming down little by little, although last lap they were identical to the 1,000th between the two of them, Knotavin and Tonlo. So right now those two, they are still pushing each other every step of the way, even if they are apart. But meanwhile, Cat Daddy here within a second as he comes to that middle sector. He's so strong through there in clear air, and we briefly lose him. Surely that's not it. No, thank goodness for that. I was going to say, that's going to be absolutely heartbreaking if we suddenly lose Cat Daddy due to a technical issue with only 5 minutes to go. Don't give us heart scares like that, please. Good Lord, Cat Daddy, as they roll the way down towards turn number 1 now. Gap this time down to 1.1 seconds. Beaver a 39.116. Cat Daddy a 38.580. 6 tenths gained. We've got a battle on our hands, ladies and gentlemen, and here they come then, as we do see DC, meanwhile not on camera. He's 22 seconds behind. He's just about to make his way onto the start-finish straight. He's got Pancakes 9 seconds back, and right now the two of them are matching lap times as well. So DC has responded to Pancakes. I think Pancakes right now hasn't got any more time left in the car really to be able to tap into. But here we've definitely got plenty of time as Beaver looking back from the rear of his car. Well, right now it's just going to be a pair of Innocuous headlights that are looking at him, but they'll go from being quite innocent to guilty as charged, wanting that place off of him the closer they get. And it's Square Driver right now, just keeping it nice and smooth. That's all you can do at this point. Don't make yourself go any quicker. Just simply maintain your line and think to yourself one thing only. You have track position, the other guy does not. He's got to go faster than you to get it off of you. You've just got to make your car wide enough at the right time. And in doing so, that's the mindset you need to take here. Manage your lines, manage your race, and you may just come out in third place. But coming through the S's right now, well, Cat Daddy now already in with the dirty air zone here. As you can see, a very tight line through turn number 11. And that's worked out quite nicely. It's meant he's not lost out too much. And definitely right now, I think he's reacting to the fact that closer and closer he gets, this car will only want to do one thing. It will only want to understeer it more and more. But coming in towards the stadium section, in towards that hairpin there, you can see under braking how much he closes up. We jump on board here with your number 69 machine. And we're after this lap. Where are our leaders right now? Knotavin down at turn number 4. So what it means is we've likely got what is 2 or 3 more laps to go. We may be very close here to getting onto what will be a 55th lap. We are going to be very marginal on that, so that could have a factor to play here. But Cat Daddy in the draft, as we can see, looking at the dashboard on the right hand side, well, and a speed here already of 160 miles an hour as he gets ready to go onto the brakes, 162 miles an hour as he comes all the way down. And well, Beaver just able to manage that gap. There's so much straight line speed in the car in front, and Cat Daddy here all over the back of him like a bad rash, but attacking that opening chicane sequence perhaps a bit too aggressively there off the line. That's actually cost him a bit of time. He's now coming down towards turn number 4. And that gap's reopened itself to 7 tenths. He's going to come back down. And again, it's the corners where he's the stronger car. But the problem is he's having to be so aggressive in the corners to be able to overcome the straight line speed deficit he seems to have in the draft. And that's what Beaver's got to his advantage here. He is going to be safe as long as he gets good corner exits. Of course, that sounds very simple in practice, but it's actually complex in reality. In fact, Beaver right now needs to know every exit. He can't afford to misplace a shift. He can't afford to overspin those wheels. And that's going to keep him safe, even if Cat Daddy's quicker on the corners themselves. But leaders go on to what is lap number 55, and I believe they did so with 1 minute 45 left on the clock. So we may see a 55th lap, we may not. We're going to have to wait and see. It's going to be close. The white flag may get called, to be fair, given how close it is to being dead on the hour for race time. The clock definitely shows you, but right now, well, Beaver here has got Cat Daddy close, but not close enough coming through the stadium section. Rolling the way on past our cameras here onto the start-finish straight. Cat Daddy at this point needs a monster run if he wants to be able to get this done. In fact, he is the white flag, so therefore we are on to the final lap. We are not going to get an extra lap in here, so one more shot of this. Cat Daddy knows half a second is the gap. He's not gaining the straights whatsoever. Beaver right now has got the straight line speed in his car. It's all going to come into the quarters and trying to go to mistake out the number 10. But the thing about the niCKaLaToR driver is he doesn't often make mistakes, and right now he can't afford to make one here today, so therefore keeps it nice and clean coming on through up the chicane. Turns 1 and 2 absolutely spot on. Cat Daddy a mirror image of him as they roar the way onwards. Now down towards turn number 4. He'll try and keep it safe there. Meanwhile, our leader, here he is, Knotavin, and coming on around and through. And in fact, with 30 seconds left on the clock, well, if we are into the race after this, we are going to have a little bit of time left, but we're going to see him make his way through the stadium sequence here, and what a drive it's been from him. And in fact, the checker flag is going to come out, ladies and gents, with only 20 seconds left on the clock. We're not getting the extra lap, and for Knotavin here, after 90 minutes of racing, he didn't start on pole, but he is going to make it 5 wins in a row here as he was pushed the distance by Tonlo, and in the end, a small mistake and a gambit on strategy was the difference. And for Knotavin, it's a comfortable win, but for Tonlo, it's a frustrating second place, almost taken to the top step, but returning to second place once again after a run-up last time out. Beaver, meanwhile, has got a way to go here, and Cat Daddy is still with him. The fight for third carries on, and as they come on down in towards turn number 12, we can see Cat Daddy takes a quick sneak peek to the inside. That's not going to work, as Omega off camera has just finished his race in 7th place. A solid set of points to the man who was the first to be a lap down, and as Beaver comes on through in towards the stadium section, he's got that absolutely done right. He just needs one more corner. And for Beaver, after what was at Willen, 3rd place last time out at Mosport, it's going to be back-to-back 3rd places. It is going to be his 3rd trip to the podium of the season. Beaver does hold on the end to take 3rd ahead of Cat Daddy, who recovers from the back of the field after starting in 3rd to finish 4th, just missing out for playing racing cars. DC's going to come through soon, and as he does so, with 8th place going to niCKaLaToR, a lap down off camera, as he's crossed the start-finish line just now. Well, we are going to see DC here in a race that definitely was looking good for a 3rd place early on, but an innocent mistake, and that's cost him the chance, and in the end, 5th place will be what he takes, but still some solid points being gained from him as he sees his finish line. And off camera, we have had Garlic Dog and Biker Pilot finish the race both a lap and 2 laps down respectively. In 6th, Pancakes, he threw everything at this, but an early mistake cost him dear, and didn't quite have the pace to make his way back into the top 5, but 6th place, a solid effort, and that will be all of our drivers to the finish line, ladies and gentlemen. But what a race it has been. And as Knotavin celebrates, he's earned this one the hard way today, with his car parks up there. And well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we run out of replay tape. Let's take a look at those race results, subject to any short inquiries. And here they are. And as we can see, after an absolutely brilliant 90 minutes of racing here for the first of our Crown Jewel races in Season 12, the LMP2 season for the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series brought to you on iRacing, Round 5 saw a 5th win in the row for Knotavin, the night racing driver who started in 2nd, and for the whole opening stint followed in the footsteps of Tonlo, but it was swapped around in the end. It was a move that had to be made by Knotavin, and he got the move done, and Tonlo, when he tried to follow him, made a mistake for the SS sequence, and that was the difference between the two of them. But the two swapped laps back and forth all the way through the race, and indeed, in the end, it came so close on the win, but also on the fastest lap, and in the end, Tonlo may not have taken victory. He's taken 2nd place for BDS Racing, but with that monster lap on lap 47, that 38.088 on a car that had definitely seen better days, he will take the bonus point for the fastest lap. 3rd place went to Beaver for Nick Squared, and in the end, starting in all the way down in 8th place. Well, qualifying definitely was not representation of what he brought to the table here, and strategy and setup absolutely critical to his success, and got it right. No mistakes made, and in the end, absolutely nailing it to make his way back onto the podium ahead of Cat Daddy, the playing a racing cars driver, in the end, making a mistake on lap number 2, but to be fair, recovering well to 4th place and almost taking 3rd right at the end. DC taking 5th there for Bong Life Motorsport. And the Canadian driver enjoying a very good run, albeit a bit of a frustrating one with the error he made after his pit stop. Otherwise, he could have been in the fight for 3rd place, but still was comfortably clear of Pancakes there, the last lead lap finisher for SimCity Racing, who held on to 6th place. Omega, 7th there, the first time driver that lap down for 3.8 Racing, had some pace midway through the race, but unfortunately not quite able to close down the top 6. With niCKaLaToR there for Nick Square with that huge shunt into the barrier, coming through turn number 7 midway through the race. Unfortunately, a tow to the pits there meant he would finish a lap down, but he did recover to 8th. Head of playing racing cars is Garlic Dog there, who took 9th place. And it was 2 laps down to Biker Pilot, who rounded off our 10 finishers for 3.8 Racing. And so great to see 10 drivers started the race, all 10 finished it, and all earning some very valuable points. Well done to them all. But of course, a huge congratulations to our podium finishers: Beaver in 3rd, Tonlo in 2nd, and of course, our now 5-time winner for this season, 5 in a row, Knotavin there for night racing. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is a rundown of the finishing positions subject to any stewards' inquiries, of which I don't think there's going to be many, to be fair. Very clean race on the whole. And with that, sadly, it does mean it is now time for us to wrap up. Well, what a race we have been able to spectate to today, ladies and gentlemen. A huge thank you for you to watching for today. Indeed, if you do want to know more about the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series, if you're sat there right now thinking, how do I join the J2ICS and get on the grid? I'm a big fan of LMP2s. I want to give them a go. I just want to join the community so that way I can get on the grid when they do run a series, which is in the car that I love. Well, for that and everything else, do go to our official website firstly, and that's at www.j2ics.com. That website appearing on screen now. It's the #1 place, the #1 source of information for all things Just 2 Idiots Championship Series and also for our Cup Series as well. And you won't find a more complete compendium of information other than on our website. But if you don't want to go to our website, perhaps you're more of a person who wants to go straight to the beating heart of the community, and that is the official Discord, where you can interact with staff, drivers, and admins. Well, we do have our invite link available on screen there, and be sure to get to the community today if you do want to get on the grid. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our 5th round. It concludes the first half of the season. But given the fact we just had a mid-season break for an iRacing update, we're not going to have any more breaks this season, because onwards we charge. And next time out on Wednesday the 25th of March 2026, we'll be making our way back to the United States of America, and it'll be time for us to do the Texas two-step at the Circuit of the Americas, or the Circuit of the World Championships. And there in Austin, Texas, we'll have to wait and see whether Knotavin can make it 6 wins in a row, or whether somebody can finally dethrone him, with Tonlo looking to be the leading candidate. But to be fair, with so many drivers chasing the podium, will he have to focus more on holding on to second place and making sure that Beaver is not going to try and steal his place? Well, for all that and more, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to come tune in as if it were live on Thursday, the 26th of March, 2026, as we continue the story of the season. But until then, we have been the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series, live today from the Mexico City Grand Prix, and I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning into a Paul Walsh production, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.